I've never really told anyone the full story of why I quit my job at Thunder Peak Adventure Park. Most people assume it was because the place was closing down, and I just got a jump on finding new work. That's what I let them believe. The truth is a lot harder to explain. I was a maintenance engineer there for almost 7 years. My specialty was the big coasters, especially the Descent. This monster of a steel coaster that broke 3 world records when it opened. I knew that ride better than I knew my own car. Every bolt, every bearing, every inch of track. At least, I thought I did. The park had been struggling for a while. Attendance was down, maintenance costs were up, the usual story of failing amusement parks. When corporate announced they were shutting the place down, it wasn't exactly a shock. Most of the staff started leaving immediately, finding other jobs before the final day. By that last week, we were running on a skeleton crew. Just me, a handful of ride operators, and maybe 20 other maintenance folks keeping things going until the end. It was a Thursday night, 3 days before the official closure. I was doing my standard evening inspection of the Descent when something caught my attention. The chain tensioner on the lift hill was giving readings that didn't make sense. If you don't know roller coasters, that's the mechanism that pulls the train up the big hill before the first drop. The readings were weird. Like the chain was simultaneously too tight and too loose. I called Gary in the control room over the radio. "Hey, you seeing anything strange with the lift hill readings?" "Nope, all normal on my end," he replied. Something didn't feel right. I decided to climb up and check it myself. I'd made that climb hundreds of times before, 247 steps to the top to be exact. But that night, something felt different from the moment my boots hit the first step. The metal was vibrating at a frequency I'd never felt before, not the normal mechanical vibration you expect, but something off rhythm, wrong. The higher I climbed, the more disoriented I felt. The park lights below started to blur together, and the wind carried sounds that shouldn't have been there, mechanical grinding mixed with what sounded like distant screams. I told myself it was just exhaustion. We'd been working double shifts since half the staff left. When I reached the top, I found something that still haunts me. The chain mechanism was moving in ways that violated everything I knew about physics and engineering. Parts of it seemed to flicker in and out of existence like a bad TV signal, and there was this dark liquid seeping from between the gears. Not oil or grease, but something that absorbed light rather than reflected it. I tried to radio down to Gary again, but all I got was static and what sounded like voices played backward. That's when I noticed a train climbing up the lift hill. According to the schedule, there shouldn't have been any more rides that night. The park closed at 8 and it was nearly 10. But there it was, a fully loaded train. As the train crested the hill, time itself seemed to stutter. The riders. Their faces were wrong. They looked simultaneously young and old, their features constantly shifting like those deep fake videos, but more fluid, more horrifying. The train didn't roll down the track like normal. It sort of skipped through space, appearing in one section and then another, without traveling the distance between. I ran down those stairs faster than I'd ever moved in my life. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. When I reached the station, Gary was gone. The control panel was covered in that same dark liquid, and the monitors showed camera angles of the park that weren't possible, views from cameras that didn't exist. I tried emergency shutdown procedures, but nothing worked. The train kept running, cycle after cycle. Each time it returned to the station, the passengers looked less and less human. Their movements became jerky and mechanical. But the worst part? Several faces stood out to me, distorted versions of people from my own life. My wife, my brother, even my dad who'd passed away years ago. I don't remember leaving the park that night. Somehow I ended up in my car, then my driveway, then lying in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those faces, those impossible movements of the train. When morning came, I dragged myself back to the park. I had to know if what I'd seen was real or if I was losing my mind. Everything was normal, perfectly, maddeningly normal. The Descent stood there in the morning sun, just a machine made of steel and paint. The chain tensioner readings were perfect. Gary was in the control room, drinking coffee like nothing had happened. "You okay, man?" he asked. "You look like shit." Did we run the descent last night after hours?" I asked. Gary looked at me like I was crazy. Course not, shut everything down at 8 just like always. But when I checked the rider count logs, there was a 3-hour gap in the data. From 9:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m., the system recorded nothing. No operations, no errors, nothing. I quit that day, told them I was taking early retirement, collecting whatever severance they were offering for the closure. My supervisor didn't even argue. They were letting people go anyway. The park closed 2 days later, right on schedule. I kept tabs on the demolition through some buddies who stuck around for that phase. They reported strange problems with the descent, tools disappearing, unexplainable equipment failures, weird noises at night. They eventually gave up on standard demolition procedures and cut it apart piece by piece, as if they were afraid of it. Here's the thing that really gets to me. About 6 months after everything was supposedly gone, I drove past the site. The entire park had been razed, replaced by the early construction of some generic office complex. But as I drove by, I swear I heard the sound of a lift hill chain clicking. That distinctive metal-on-metal rhythm that becomes part of your blood when you work with these machines long enough. When I looked in my rearview mirror just for a split second, I saw the descent standing there, silhouetted against the sky. And a maintenance worker was climbing those stairs. I hit the brakes so hard that the car behind me nearly rear-ended me. When I looked again, there was nothing but construction equipment and half-built office walls. My wife thinks I had some kind of breakdown from the stress of losing my long-term job. The doctor called it an acute stress reaction and prescribed some pills that I never took. Maybe they're right. God knows I want them to be right. But sometimes when I'm working in my garage on the weekend, I'll find a small puddle of that dark liquid under my tools. It evaporates before I can show anyone, before I can prove I'm not crazy. The official record shows that Thunder Peak Adventure Park closed due to declining attendance and maintenance costs. 312 people lost their jobs. The descent was scrapped and sold for parts. That's what the newspapers reported, what everyone believes. But late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder about those passengers I saw. I wonder if they're still riding somewhere, on a version of that coaster that exists outside of normal time and space. And I wonder if somewhere in some other reality, I'm still climbing those stairs, discovering what really powers the rides we build for our amusement. I still work in maintenance, but I stay firmly on the ground these days. Haven't been on a roller coaster since that night. Can't bring myself to climb anything higher than a stepladder. Some things you experience change you forever, you know? That night on the descent changed me. Sometimes I think about reaching out to others who worked at Thunder Peak to see if anyone else experienced something strange during those final days. But what would I even say? Hey, remember when reality broke down and our roller coaster started running through dimensions? They'd think I was nuts. So I keep it to myself. Go to work, come home, mow the lawn, watch TV with my wife. Normal life stuff. But every once in a while, I'll catch myself listening for that lift hill chain in the distance. And sometimes, just sometimes, I think I hear it. Morning mist masked my movements as I pushed my golden cart through Jackson Square. 3 months had passed since the transformation. 3 months of watching my customers consume their darkest desires. I felt them now, the wishes hovering around tourists and locals like hungry mosquitoes. Each pulse of want pulled me forward, my new senses tracking longing like a bloodhound tracks a scent. "Fresh pastries," I called, my voice chiming like tiny bells. "King cakes to make your dreams come true." A man in a business suit stopped, his phone pressed to his ear. "Hold on, Monica. I'll call you back." He pocketed his phone and approached. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Divorce papers peeked from his briefcase. "Rough morning?" I asked, though I already knew. The creature inside me, or what I had become, read his pain like an open book. "The worst," he muttered. "My wife's leaving me for my business partner." I selected a small cake glazed with gold. "Perhaps something sweet will help." "Nothing can help this mess," he said, but handed me $20 anyway. I leaned close, When you find the baby, make a wish. My fingers brushed his as I passed him the box, and I glimpsed his future. His partner's car crashed into the Mississippi, Monica running back to his arms. He'd find me again in 3 days, gold leaking from his ears as his partner's voice played on an endless loop inside his skull. But that's how it worked. The price always matched the darkness of the wish. The creature, I called it the wishmaker, fed on regret as much as desire. It whispered constantly in my head, guiding my hands as I baked, suggesting who to sell to, who to spare. More, it hissed. Find the hungry ones. Detective Mills's replacement, Valentina Cruz, had been watching me for weeks. I spotted her now, pretending to read a newspaper at Café du Monde. Young, clever, with eyes that missed nothing. I waved. She pretended not to see. My next customer approached, a teenage girl with purple hair and bitten nails. I heard about your cakes, she whispered, that they're special. Special how? I kept my voice neutral, but the wishmaker stirred. This one, she burns with want. People at school say you can make things happen. She glanced around. Bad things to bad people. I studied her face, the fading bruise near her temple, poorly concealed with makeup. Who hurt you, child? Her eyes welled. My mom's boyfriend, she won't believe me. The wishmaker purred. Perfect. Give her what she needs. But something in me, some remnant of Margot Boudreau, hesitated. This girl didn't deserve the price that would come. I closed my eyes, fighting the pressure building behind them. When I opened them, golden tears tracked down my cheeks. Not all wishes require my cakes, I said, capturing a tear in a small vial I kept around my neck. I pressed it into her palm. 3 drops in his drink, nothing more. Then run. Find Detective Cruz at the 5th precinct. I nodded toward Valentina. Tell her everything. The girl clutched the vial. What will happen to him? He'll confess, publicly, painfully. I closed her fingers over the glass. The price for this is smaller, just a memory. You'll forget my face after it's done. She nodded, slipped the vial into her pocket, and disappeared into the crowd. The wishmaker thrashed inside me. Fool, you denied me a feast. Pain shot through my veins as punishment. I doubled over, golden blood trickling from my nose. Are you all right, ma'am? A tourist couple paused beside my cart. I straightened, forcing a smile. Just a dizzy spell. I wiped my nose with a napkin that instantly turned to gold. The wishmaker wasn't the only one learning. Each time I bent its rules, I discovered more about its limitations. Each act of mercy strengthened whatever remained of my humanity. That night, I returned to my bakery, closed to the public but still my workshop. The building remained cordoned off as a crime scene, but police never saw me enter or leave. Another gift from my golden passenger. I mixed dough in the dark, my skin providing all the light I needed. My hands moved with mechanical precision, measuring, folding, creating vessels for corruption. Someone knocked. I froze. Nobody knew I came here. The knocking continued. 3 sharp raps, then silence. I know you're in there, Miss Boudreau. A woman's voice. Detective Cruz. The wishmaker hissed. Kill her. I approached the door. It's closed for a reason, Detective. I need answers. Her voice held no fear, just determination. 5 more deaths this week, all connected to your products. I pressed my palm against the door, feeling her heartbeat through the wood. Go home, Valentina. This isn't something you can solve. Then help me understand. She slipped a case file under the door. The latest victim was a 9-year-old boy. My heart, what was left of it, stuttered. I never sold to children. Never. I grabbed the file and flipped it open. Photos spilled out. A child's bedroom, walls painted with golden handprints, a small body curled in the center of the floor. His mother bought one of your cakes, Cruz continued. She wished for a promotion. Got it. Came home to find him like that. The wishmaker laughed. Consequences cascade, wishes spread like poison. I hadn't considered this, that my customers might share my creations, that innocent bystanders might pay the price. Move away from the door, I called to Cruz. Are you going to tell me what's happening? I'm going to show you. I unlocked the door. Cruz stood on the threshold, hand near her concealed weapon, eyes widening as she took in my transformed appearance. Jesus, she whispered. No, quite the opposite, I said. Come in, detective. It's time someone knew the whole story. She stepped inside, keeping distance between us. What are you? A mistake? A vessel? A warning. I perched on a countertop, the golden light from my skin casting strange shadows. What I tell you won't make your report. It won't solve your case, but it might save lives. For the next hour, I explained everything. The masked woman, the vial, the deaths, the transformation. Cruz listened without interruption, her face shifting from skepticism to horror to grim acceptance. So it feeds on wishes, she finally said, on the space between what people want and what they deserve. I met her eyes. Everyone has darkness, detective. The wishmaker just brings it to life. How do we stop it? You don't, the creature inside me cackled. I'm working on that, I said, but first we need to destroy the remaining cakes. And then? I slid off the counter. Then I disappear forever. Cruz shook her head. That's not justice. This isn't about justice anymore. I moved toward my freezer. It's about survival. The wishmaker screamed as I opened the freezer door. Inside, dozens of golden cakes pulsed with an unholy light. These were meant for tomorrow, I told Cruz. Mardi Gras, the feeding day. I reached for the gas valve on my industrial stove. What are you doing? Cruz backed toward the door. Making my own wish come true. I turned the valve fully open. Gas hissed into the room. Run, detective. Tell them about a gas leak. Nothing more. Understanding dawned in her eyes. There must be another way. There isn't. I pushed her toward the exit. Some prices must be paid willingly. After she fled, I stood among my deadly creations, breathing in the gas filling my lungs. The wishmaker thrashed inside me, sensing my plan. You'll die too. That's the point, I whispered, striking a match against my golden thumb. The flame flickered, bright, beautiful, finite. My final wish, freedom. I trace the shamrock on my door every morning, wondering when the golden thread will come from my lips. The blood has dried brown now, but my name beneath it gleams fresh and wet. Always wet, never drying. My mother's bedroom remains untouched. Her coffee cup still sits on the kitchen counter, lipstick staining the rim. I can't bring myself to wash it. It started with my article about the missing Walsh twins. Their mother found matching shamrocks painted on their bedroom doors, the blood still dripping down the wood grain. The police blamed teenage pranks. Animal blood, they said. Nothing to fear in sleepy Pine Grove, Indiana. But I knew better. I'd heard the whispers. More pairs vanished. The Martinez sisters from the grocery store. Old Bill Thompson and his grandson. Each disappearance was marked by those bloody shamrocks, like some twisted calling card. My research led me to town records from 1973. 6 people vanished that March, and in 1923, 6 more. Always in pairs, always before St. Patrick's Day. The papers called it the curse of the Clover Man. Dana helped me dig deeper. We found journals, letters, and police reports, all describing a faceless figure in black, carrying a golden sickle. He whispered names in the dark, hunting soul twins for his bloody harvest. You're obsessed, Dana said that last night, packing up the archive boxes. Some stories should stay buried. She disappeared 3 days later. I woke to tapping on my window. Dana stood outside, pale as moonlight. Her eyes stared through me, empty as the winter sky. Gold thread zigzagged across her lips, pulling the skin tight. Behind her loomed a figure in a black coat. Where his face should have been, shadows writhed like smoke. The golden sickle in his hand caught the streetlight, throwing fractured rainbows across my wall. "Choose," Dana's voice echoed in my head, though her sewn lips never moved. "Choose who takes your place." The clover man reached for me with hands like twisted roots. Panic clawed up my throat. I needed to say a name. Any name. "My mother," I choked out. "Take my mother instead." Dana collapsed. The clover man vanished. I slammed the window shut and huddled under my blankets like a child, praying for morning. I woke to sunshine and silence. My mother's bed was empty, the sheets cold. The shamrock appeared on my door within the hour, my name glistening beneath it like fresh tears. Now I understand the curse. The clover man doesn't just want sacrifices. He wants guilt, shame, the knowledge that we chose to feed his hunger. Each victim must betray someone they love, continuing the chain. Dana visits sometimes, standing silent in my yard at night. The golden threads catch moonlight as she mouths words I can't understand, or won't understand. I've started hearing whispers in the dark, names, so many names. Soon the clover man will return. He'll make me choose again. Part of me hopes I'll be stronger next time, that I'll refuse to condemn another soul. But I know the truth. When he comes, I'll give him what he wants. I'll speak a name. And somewhere in Pine Grove, another bloody shamrock will bloom. The whispers grow louder each night. My lips tingle as if already feeling phantom threads pulling them shut. Next March, someone will find my body, my mouth sewn with gold, and the cycle will continue. Because in Pine Grove betrayal grows like clover, spreading its roots through generations, we feed it with our choices, water it with our tears, and paint its leaves in blood. The shamrock on my door pulses like a heart. My name drips endlessly beneath it, always wet, never drying, waiting for the next harvest. You know that moment when you realize you've made a terrible mistake? That's what hit me as I crunched through the snow, each step of my crampons echoing in that unnatural silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's watching you. We were close to Camp 4 on Everest, 6 of us plus Paolo, our Sherpa guide. His orange jacket was the only thing keeping us oriented in that white hellscape. The blizzard had come out of nowhere, visibility dropping to almost nothing. "We're nearing Camp 4, Paolo yelled back at us, his voice nearly swallowed by the howling wind. "Just a few more hours to the summit." I nodded, though my face was frozen in a grimace behind my mask. Look, I'd trained for months, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for the death zone. Every breath burns, every step feels like you're dragging lead weights, and your mind starts playing tricks on you. I glanced back at the others. Annie nearly stumbled into a crevasse, one of those gaping ice mouths that will swallow you whole without a second thought. Kevin lunged and grabbed her just in time. "You okay?" he shouted over the wind. "I'm fine," Annie stuttered through chattering teeth. Just lost my footing." Those two had been dating for years. Kevin had told me in confidence that he planned to propose at the summit. Looking at them now, I wondered if either of them would live to see another sunrise. Marie was behind them, fiddling with her oxygen tank. "Guys, I don't like this," she called out. "The storm's getting worse." Being our team medic, she knew better than anyone what we were risking with each step, deeper into that white hell. Hypoxia, frostbite, edema. Death by a dozen different means. Jason, ever the fucking lawyer, waved off her concerns. "We've come too far to turn back now. We push on." Patience was quiet, which wasn't like her. Her eyes kept darting between the swirling snow and the darkness beyond. For a climate scientist who'd studied these mountains from afar, experiencing their raw power firsthand was clearly messing with her head. The wind grew stronger, visibility dropping to just a few feet ahead. Paolo's orange jacket became nothing more than a smudge in the white. "Paolo?" I called out, squinting through my frosted goggles. "Paolo!" Nothing. Just that eerie silence that seemed to absorb my voice. I felt panic rising in my chest as I fumbled for my radio with my bulky gloves. "Base camp," "This is Summit Team Alpha," I stammered. "We've lost visual on our guide. Requesting immediate—" That's when I heard it. A scream. Not human, not animal, something else. It echoed off the ice walls around us, vibrating in my bones. I spun around, my headlamp cutting through the blizzard. For just a split second, I saw something. A massive figure covered in fur. Definitely not human. Then it vanished into the whiteout. What the hell was that? Kevin's voice trembled. Before anyone could answer, another scream tore through the storm, this one unmistakably human. Paolo's voice echoed through the howling wind. "Run! It's coming!" His words cut off with a sickening crunch that made my blood freeze in my veins. Silence fell again. That watching, waiting silence. In the swirling white abyss around us, something was hunting. I could feel its hunger like a physical presence. "Move!" Jason shouted, snapping us all into action. We fought through the snow, each step plunging deep into the powder. The storm transformed the mountain into something alien and hostile. My thoughts raced. What had I seen? Was it oxygen deprivation playing tricks on my brain? It couldn't be real. Those kinds of things don't exist, not here, not in reality. But the image of that figure, its fur glistening with frost in the moonlight, wouldn't leave my mind. A low growl rumbled from somewhere behind us. Too close. "Hurry up!" Patience shouted, her scientific composure shattered. There are no predators at this altitude, at least none in the textbooks. Marie stumbled and disappeared into a snowdrift. Kevin pulled her up, his face contorted with effort. "Stay together," he yelled over the wind's howl. "We need shelter," Annie screamed, her mountaineering instincts kicking in. We were breaking every survival rule, scattering in panic, moving blindly in zero visibility. But what choice did we have? There. Jason pointed toward a dark shape looming in the blizzard. An ice cave. We ran toward it, our lungs burning with each gasping breath of thin air. My heart pounded against my ribs. Please, please, please. The cave entrance was a black void in the white expanse. We stumbled inside one after another, trembling from exhaustion and terror. "Roll call," Jason ordered, his voice shaking despite his attempt at control. "Sound off." Jessica, Kevin, Annie, Marie. Silence. "Patience?" Jason called again, dread heavy in his voice. "Patience." Only the wind answered. Annie grabbed her radio, her fingers clumsy with cold and fear. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Summit Team Alpha. We have an injured man down and a climber missing. Request immediate—" Her transmission cut off as a scream pierced the air, Patience's scream. "Oh God," Marie whimpered. "Oh God, oh God." I peered into the swirling storm beyond the cave entrance, my headlamp barely penetrating the dense snow. Something moved out there, followed by a crunching sound that sent ice down my spine. Then nothing but that watching silence. Minutes dragged by like hours. The tension was unbearable. Thud. Something heavy landed at the entrance of our shelter. Patience's severed head stared back at us, her eyes frozen in a final scream. Annie's shriek echoed through the cave. Kevin retched violently. Marie sobbed, her cries bouncing off the icy walls. I couldn't look away. The pristine snow stained crimson. Patience's eyes, once bright with scientific curiosity, were now vacant and lifeless. What kind of creature could do this? What kind of nightmare had we walked into? Crunch, crunch, crunch. Heavy footsteps approached our hideaway. "Back!" Jason hissed, his face chalk white. "Everyone move back! Now!" We scrambled deeper into the cave, ice crystals raining down as we pushed against one another in blind panic. A massive shadow filled the entrance, a hulking figure covered in matted fur, with claws that scraped against the frozen ground and teeth that gleamed in the light of my headlamp. The creature roared, the sound vibrating through the mountain itself. "Run!" I screamed to my petrified friends, and we fled deeper into the darkness, leaving behind our dreams of conquering the summit and any illusion of safety we might have had. The darkness swallowed us whole. That cave twisted deeper into the mountain's guts like some frozen nightmare. All I could hear was our panicked breathing bouncing off those slick walls, amplifying our fear. "Stop," Jason wheezed, doubling over. "Need to regroup." We huddled together like frightened animals. My hand shook as I fumbled with my pack and pulled out a flare. When I struck it, that harsh red glow washed over everyone's faces. Jesus, we looked like ghosts already. Gaunt faces, wild eyes. "What the hell was that thing?" Kevin's voice cracked. He had his arm wrapped around Annie, both of them trembling uncontrollably. Marie just rocked back and forth, muttering to herself. Ironic, really. All that medical training, and now she was just cataloging all the ways we were going to die in this frozen hellhole. Annie reached out to touch Marie's shoulder, but her own eyes were brimming with tears. "We shouldn't be here," she whispered. "We never should have come." "Doesn't matter now," Jason snapped. I could see his leadership facade crumbling. The hotshot lawyer wasn't so confident anymore. "We need a plan. Now." My mind was racing, the adrenaline helping me to think clearer. The radios are useless in here. We're on our own. "We can't go back the way we came," Annie said, barely audible. "It's waiting." The silence that followed felt like a physical weight on my chest. "Forward," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "We push forward. These caves might lead to another exit." "Or trap us like rats," Kevin shot back. His usual optimism had vanished. "You got a better idea?" Jason challenged, some of his old arrogance flickering back to life. Silence again. "Thought so. Let's move." I took the lead, the flare casting monstrous shadows on the walls around us. Every time water dripped or ice creaked, I nearly jumped out of my skin. My years of climbing experience were the only thing keeping us from getting completely lost in that maze. Kevin and Annie followed close behind me, clinging to one another. I couldn't help feeling a stab of envy watching them. My relationships had always taken a back seat to my climbing ambitions. Funny how facing death makes you question your life choices. Jason brought up the rear, constantly looking back over his shoulder. I could practically see the lawyer in him trying to rationalize what we'd seen, searching for some logical explanation that didn't involve monsters. Marie stumbled along in the middle, clutching her medical kit to her chest like it was a teddy bear. "We're all gonna die here," she kept muttering. "Hypothermia, starvation, or that thing." "We're not dying here," I insisted, turning to face them. "We're going to..." Crack. The sound was like a gunshot in that enclosed space. Before any of us could react, the ground just gave way beneath Marie's feet. 1 second she was there, the next she was gone, plummeting into the darkness with a scream that still haunts my nightmares. "Marie!" Annie lunged forward, but Jason grabbed her. "She's gone," he said grimly. "We can't help her now." We heard a distant thud, then nothing. Annie's tears froze on her cheeks. "We can't just leave her." "We have to," I said, my voice hollow. The weight of keeping everyone else alive settled on my shoulders like a boulder. "Or we all die." We kept moving, guilt and fear threatening to crush us with every step. That cave seemed endless, a frozen nightmare stretching into infinity. The hours blurred together. Exhaustion clawed at us, making our movements sluggish and our thoughts foggy. We stopped occasionally to share what pathetic scraps of food and water we had left, each meager ration a reminder that our chances were dwindling by the minute. During one break, I noticed Kevin pull Annie close, whispering something to her. She nodded, tears glistening in our headlamp beams. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I was going to do this on the summit," he said, his voice breaking. "But I don't know if we'll make it there. Annie, will you..." A roar echoed through the cave, cutting him off mid-proposal. The sound was distant, but unmistakable. It was coming for us. "Move!" Jason hissed, scrambling to his feet. "Now!" We abandoned any pretense of caution, just desperate to get away. The cave floor sloped downward, becoming slick with ice. I lost my footing and slid several terrifying feet before managing to stop myself. "Careful," I called back to the others. "The ice is..." Too late. Annie slipped, her surprised cry turning to one of pain as she slammed into a jutting rock. There was this sickening crack, and she crumpled to the ground. "Annie!" Kevin was at her side instantly, cradling her head. "My leg," she gasped through clenched teeth. "I think it's broken." The roar came again, closer this time. Much closer. Jason looked from Annie to the dark passage ahead, his face twisted with indecision. "We can't carry her. We'll never outrun it." "We're not leaving her," Kevin snarled, turning on Jason with murder in his eyes. "Stop." I stepped between them before they could come to blows. "Fighting won't help. We need to..." I trailed off as I caught sight of something, a faint glow ahead of us. My heart leaped. "Look, there's light ahead. An opening." Sure enough, there was a dim illumination visible in the distance, promising escape from this nightmare. Another roar shook the cave, sending showers of ice down on our heads. The creature was almost upon us. "Go," Annie said, her face white with pain and fear. "Leave me. I'll slow it down." "No." Kevin's anguished cry bounced off the walls. "I won't leave you." I made a split-second decision. "Kevin, help me with Annie. Jason, cover our rear. We're getting out of here together." We made a crude sling from our climbing ropes and supported Annie between us as we hobbled toward the light. Jason followed with his ice axe raised, ready to face whatever horror was approaching. With each painful step, the glow grew brighter. Freedom was so close I could almost taste it. Then we emerged into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. Ancient ice formations glittered in our lamplight, like some eerie frozen forest. "Look," Kevin pointed with his free hand. "There's an opening up there. We can climb out." Relief flooded through me. For a moment I thought we might actually survive this nightmare. Then I saw them. Bones. Hundreds of bones scattered across the chamber floor. Human and other. "Oh God," Annie choked. "It's a lair." A low growl reverberated through the chamber. My blood turned to ice. It had been waiting for us all along. The creature emerged from the shadows, massive and ancient, its white fur stained with blood. Teeth like daggers. Claws that could shred steel. Not a legend, not a myth. Real. Hungry. "Climb," I screamed. "Now!" We scrambled toward the ice wall, fumbling with pitons and ropes like drunk teenagers. Every second felt like an eternity. The monster's roar shook loose shards of ice that rained down on us. My heart pounded in my chest, a desperate mix of fear and exhaustion. Kevin reached the opening first, hauling himself up with strength I didn't know he had left. "Come on," he shouted, extending his hand down to Annie. Annie gritted her teeth against the pain in her leg, reaching up with trembling fingers. Their hands clasped. I felt a momentary surge of hope. Then the creature charged. Jason, bringing up the rear, turned to face the nightmare bearing down on us. His ice axe, designed for climbing frozen mountains, was now our last line of defense. "Go!" he shouted, his voice cracking. "I'll hold it off." "Jason, no!" I cried out, caught between climbing to safety and not abandoning my friend. But he was already moving, placing himself between us and that thing. The beast towered over him, this primal force of nature against one stubborn human being. Jason swung his ice axe in a desperate arc. It connected with a spray of blood and a howl that made my skin crawl. For one crazy moment I thought he might actually do it. Then the creature's massive paw swept out, catching Jason mid-torso. I'll never forget the sound, that wet crunch of breaking bones. Jason's scream cut off as his body flew across the chamber and crumpled against the far wall. "Oh God," Annie sobbed from above. "Oh God, oh God." The monster turned those cold, ancient eyes on me, the last obstacle between it and its escaping prey. Time slowed. My life flashed before me. All the mountains I'd climbed, the sunrises I'd witnessed from heights most people will never see. Was this how I was going to die? In the belly of something that shouldn't even exist? A memory hit me, my first climbing instructor years ago. The mountain doesn't care about you, it's up to you to survive. Survival, right. In one fluid motion, I unclipped the ice axe from my harness. The monster lunged. I dove and rolled, feeling the rush of air as claws barely missed my skull. I came up swinging, my axe biting deep into the creature's flank. The roar that followed was deafening, pain and rage in equal measure. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I sprinted for the ice wall, adrenaline making me faster than I'd ever been. "Jess, hurry!" Kevin's panicked voice spurred me on. I leaped, my fingers finding holds in the craggy ice. I climbed, knowing my life depended on it. A vicious snarl from below told me the creature wasn't done with me yet. Halfway up, 3/4, almost there. Something raked across my calf, tearing through my climbing suit. White-hot pain shot up my leg. I screamed but kept climbing. I couldn't stop. Kevin and Annie's hands reached down, grabbing my arms, hauling me up with their last reserves of strength. We collapsed together on a narrow ledge, gasping and trembling. The monster's furious roars echoed from below, but the opening was too small for its massive bulk. We were safe, for now. "We made it," Annie whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. Kevin pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I love you," he murmured. "God, I love you so much." I turned away from their embrace, looking out at the vast expanse of white beyond our little shelter. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world of blinding snow. Somewhere out there was safety. Somewhere out there was home. But we weren't safe yet, not by a long shot. "We have to keep moving," I said, wincing as I put weight on my injured leg. "That thing, it might find another way up." Kevin nodded grimly. He helped Annie to her feet, supporting her weight. "Which way?" I scanned the terrain, years of mountaineering experience kicking in automatically. "There, we head down, fast as we can." We began our descent, each step a battle against exhaustion and terror. The sun crawled across the sky as we picked our way down the treacherous slope. Every creak of ice, every distant rumble had us jumping like scared cats. Was it following us? Hunting us? The questions gnawed at my mind, pushing me forward despite the pain in my leg and the exhaustion that threatened to drop me where I stood. As dusk approached, Kevin stumbled, nearly sending both himself and Annie over a sheer drop. I caught them, my muscles screaming as I hauled them back to safety. "We need to rest," I panted, just for a little while. We huddled together behind a rock outcropping, sharing the last of our supplies. The wind howled around us, sounding almost like distant, mournful cries. Or maybe that was just our minds playing tricks on us. "What was that thing?" Annie asked, barely above a whisper. How is it possible?" Kevin shook his head. "Maybe it's some undiscovered species, something that evolved to survive up here." "Does it matter?" I cut in. "It's real, it killed our friends, and we need to warn people." We fell silent, each lost in our own thoughts. My mind whirled with how impossible this all was. How could we explain what happened? Who would believe us? A sound cut through the wind, a low, rumbling growl. "No," Kevin breathed. "It can't be." But it was. The creature emerged from the gathering darkness, its white fur blending with the snow. How long had it been there, watching, waiting? "Run!" I screamed. We bolted, all thoughts of caution gone in our blind panic. Annie cried out as her broken leg twisted, but Kevin half carried her, desperation giving him strength. I brought up the rear, ice axe clutched in my hand. I could hear the creature's breathing and the crunch of its paws on the snow. It was toying with us, I realized. It could have caught us at any time. A game. We were just part of some twisted game. The realization ignited something in me. Anger overwhelmed the fear. I whirled to face the beast, axe raised. "Come on, you bastard," I screamed. The creature paused, almost seeming surprised by my defiance. Then it charged. I stood my ground, my heart pounding, my muscles coiled. At the last possible second, I dove to the side. The monster's momentum carried it past me, right toward the edge of a deep crevasse. Time slowed. I saw the creature's eyes widen in something almost like human surprise. Then it was falling, a roar of rage and fear echoing as it plummeted into the abyss. Silence fell. I stood frozen, scarcely daring to breathe. Had it worked? Was it really gone? A distant crash from far below answered my question. I sagged to my knees, adrenaline draining away, leaving me weak and shaking. "It's over," I mumbled. It's really over. Kevin and Annie limped back to me, their faces etched with disbelief. "You did it," Kevin said, his voice filled with awe. "You actually did it." I managed a weak smile. "We did it. We survived." As if in answer, a new sound cut through the night, the rhythmic thump of helicopter blades. "Down here!" Annie screamed, waving her arms frantically. "We're here!" The helicopter's searchlight swept over us, a beacon of hope in the darkness. As it descended, I felt the last of my strength leave me. I toppled sideways into the snow, consciousness slipping away. My last thought before the darkness took me: we made it. We're going home. I jolted awake, my heart racing. The soft beep of hospital monitors slowly brought me back to reality. I was safe, rescued, alive. But the nightmare lingered. In the days that followed, I told my story again and again. To doctors, to psychiatrists, to government officials. Few believed me. Many suggested altitude sickness, hallucinations brought on by extreme conditions, and oxygen deprivation. Kevin and Annie backed up my account at first, but even they began to doubt it as time passed. Had it happened? Could such a creature truly exist? Only I remained certain. I knew what I had seen, what I had fought. 3 months later, I was standing at my apartment window, staring at the distant mountains on the horizon, when my phone rang. It was Kevin. "Have you seen the news?" His voice was tight with tension. "No, what's happening?" "Another expedition, on Everest. They've gone missing." I felt the blood drain from my face. "In what area?" "Near where we were. Near Camp 4. "Coincidence," I said, but I didn't believe it. "There's more," Kevin whispered. "Before they lost contact, they radioed in. Said they heard something, saw something in the storm." A chill ran down my spine as I looked back toward those distant peaks. "Jess," Kevin's voice cracked, "we left it alive, didn't we?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because deep down I already knew the truth. Somewhere out there, in the vast white silence of the highest peaks, it was waiting, hungry, patient. And the hunt was far from over. I never thought I'd be the guy with a crazy story nobody believed. I used to laugh at those people, you know. But here I am. I've been working the night shift at Walmart for over 3 years. It's not glamorous, but it paid the bills. The overnight differential was decent enough. I liked the quiet. Walmart at 3 a.m. has this weird peacefulness to it. Well, it used to. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when things started changing. Little stuff at first. The kind of things that make you question if you're just tired, or if the weird hours are finally getting to you. I'd stock shelves meticulously, come back an hour later and find products in completely different spots. I'd hear footsteps when nobody else was in my section. You work nights long enough, your mind plays tricks on you. That's what I kept telling myself. My supervisor, Tom, is a decent guy. Been with the company for almost 15 years. He's seen it all, or so he thought. We usually communicate through these crappy walkie-talkies that cut out half the time. 2 months ago, around 3 a.m., Tom's voice crackled through asking me to check something in aisle 17. Now I know this sounds stupid, but we don't have an aisle 17. Never have. Our store goes from 16 straight to 18, some old building quirk from when they renovated back in the 90s. So I figured Tom was just tired, or the radio was cutting out. "Tom, you mean aisle 16 or 18? We don't have a 17, remember?" The radio just crackled with static. I pulled out my employee map, we all carry them during inventory, and double-checked. Nope, just like I thought. 16, then 18, no 17. But when I looked up from the map, I swear to God, there it was. A dark aisle stretching between 16 and 18, like it had always been there. The overhead lights were dimmer there, flickering slightly. I felt this weird pressure in my ears, like when you're driving up a mountain and need to pop them. The air around this aisle felt wrong, heavy and metallic, like standing too close to those big electrical boxes outside. My first instinct was to call Tom back, but something made me walk closer instead. I flipped on my flashlight and pointed it down the aisle. The shelves were stocked with products I'd never seen before. The packaging had these weird symbols on them, not any language I recognized. Just looking at them gave me an instant headache, like my brain was rejecting what my eyes were seeing. I took a step back and radioed Tom again. "Tom, when did we get an aisle 17, and what the hell are we stocking there?" Nothing but static. During my break, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I snuck into Rita's office, she's our night manager, while she was doing a walkthrough in the garden center. That ancient computer they refused to replace took forever to boot up, but I wanted to look at the store plans. The files went back to 1987 when they built this place. Turns out there was some controversy with the local tribe about building here. Something about disturbing sacred ground. The usual stuff you hear, right? But then I found incident reports, employee records, missing persons cases. The first one was from 1988. A night stalker named Al had reported finding an extra aisle during his shift. He disappeared 3 days later. The security footage they recovered showed static whenever they tried to view that section of the store, but his employee file had a photo that made my blood run cold. The guy looked exactly like me. Not just similar, it was my face, wearing an old 80s Walmart uniform. My hands were shaking as I kept digging. Every few years, another night shift worker would disappear. The cameras never showed them vanishing, just static. But their employee records were all there, and every single photo showed my face at different ages. Different hairstyles, different name tags, but undeniably me. I started noticing changes in myself after that night. My reflection in the store windows gets a little dimmer each shift. Sometimes my hands pass right through items I'm trying to stock like I'm made of smoke. One night, a customer walked right through me like I wasn't even there. She didn't react, didn't even shiver as people do in ghost stories. I just wasn't solid to her. It hit me then that those weren't past victims in those files. They were my future. Me, trapped in this endless loop of stocking shelves and feeding whatever resides under this store. This isn't about ghosts. It's about time being broken here, folded back on itself like origami. That extra aisle, it's like a membrane between our world and something else. Something old. It feeds on people, using us like batteries. We all work here now, stocking shelves with products that don't exist, labeled with symbols that bypass your brain and speak to something primitive inside you. After a while, you start to understand those symbols. They tell stories about beings that existed before humans evolved, things that got disturbed when we started building here, things that don't experience time like we do. Last week, I tried to quit, walked into Rita's office and handed in my notice. She looked at me with these completely black eyes and said, "You've always worked here, Michael. You always will." When I looked down at my name tag, it said Al, the guy from 1988. I tried leaving the store at the end of my shift, but the doors just led me to the back room again. Every exit takes me to another part of the store. I haven't seen daylight in what feels like weeks now. The other night shift workers, I'm not sure they're real anymore. Tom's voice on the radio sounds different every time. Sometimes it's a woman's voice, sometimes it's multiple voices speaking in unison. Rita's office is empty whenever I try to find her now. The computer files show hundreds of missing employees going back centuries, long before Walmart even existed. I watch the late-night customers now, seeing how some of them drift toward aisle 17, like they're being pulled by an invisible current. The aisle stretches to welcome them, using their energy to feed whatever's beneath us. My name tag keeps changing. Al, Mike, Matt, but they're all me, trapped in this eternal shift. The only way I can explain it is that this store is a trap, not just the building, but the space it occupies. That Native American tribe wasn't just being superstitious. They knew something was wrong with this land. Whatever resides here needs energy and consciousness to sustain itself. The perfect setup is a 24-hour store with tired, isolated night workers who won't be missed right away. I've tried leaving notes for myself, warnings for the next iteration of me that will discover all this, but they always disappear. I suspect I've written this exact note hundreds of times before, trying to break the cycle. The other night, I decided to walk directly into aisle 17, as deep as it would go. The products on the shelves started changing as I walked, morphing into things I couldn't comprehend. The aisle kept stretching impossibly long. After what felt like hours of walking, I saw a figure at the end, stocking shelves with mechanical precision. It was me, or a version of me, older, gaunt, with eyes that had seen too much. He turned and smiled when he saw me approaching. "Took you long enough," he said. "I've been waiting to train my replacement." That's when I realized what was happening. I'm not just trapped in a loop. I'm being groomed to become something else. Something that manages this place. Something that helps it feed. It's 3 a.m. again now. It's always 3 a.m. here. My radio's crackling with static, and I know another version of me is about to discover what's really going on in this store. Some doors only open one way, you know, and some hunger can never be satisfied. The store keeps expanding, reality bending around our endless shift. We serve powers beyond comprehension, feeding an ancient hunger one shelf at a time. And the worst part? I'm starting to forget what the outside world looks like, starting to think maybe I've always been here. So if you're ever in a Walmart late at night and see an aisle that shouldn't be there, or an employee who looks right through you, just keep walking. Don't make eye contact. Don't check your receipt. Just leave while you still can. Because at Walmart, the customer is always right until you're no longer the customer. Then you're just inventory. I never thought I'd end up working security at the Red Door. You know the place. That upscale strip club downtown where all the tech bros and finance guys dump their money. The pay was decent though, and the 3 a.m. to noon shift meant I could avoid most of the chaos. Plus, the dancers were cool, always sharing their pizza and telling wild stories during breakfast. But weird shit started happening about 2 months in. At first, it was small stuff I could brush off. Music playing when the sound system was off, perfume scents with no one around, that kind of thing. The other guards had mentioned some strange occurrences, but everyone just blamed it on being tired or the weird hours messing with our heads. Then I found the door. I was doing my usual rounds one morning around 5 a.m., checking all the emergency exits and private rooms. The club has 3 levels: main floor, VIP upstairs, and storage in the basement. I knew every inch of that place and had walked it hundreds of times. But that morning, there was an extra door on the basement level, right between storage rooms B and C. Here's the thing. I had the building's blueprints memorized as part of my job. There was no door there. Never had been. But there it was. This heavy red door with ornate brass hardware that looked way older than the building itself. I radioed Jeremiah, the other guard on duty. "Hey, you ever notice that fancy door between B and C?" Static. Just fucking static. I pulled my phone out to take a picture, but the screen went black every time I pointed it at the door. That's when I should have noped the hell out of there. But curiosity is a bitch, right? The door wasn't locked. The handle turned smooth as butter like it was inviting me in. Inside was, well, it looked like the Red Door, but wrong. Like someone had tried to recreate the club from a dream. The stage was there, but it curved impossibly. The mirrors on the walls reflected things that weren't there. And the poles? They stretched up into darkness with no ceiling in sight. That's when I heard the music. Not our usual top 40 remix bullshit, but something older. Way older. Like those scratchy jazz recordings from the 1920s, but played backward and underwater. Then I saw her, a dancer on the twisted stage. She wore one of those vintage burlesque outfits, all feathers and beading. But when she turned, her face was mine, not someone who looked like me. It was my face, but with this knowing smile like she'd been waiting for me. I ran, slamming the door, not stopping until I reached the break room. Jeremiah found me there, shaking and chugging coffee. He looked concerned, but not surprised. "You found it, didn't you?" he asked. "The Red Door?" Turns out I wasn't the first. Jeremiah took me to the club owner's office and showed me the files. Newspaper clippings from when they first broke ground on the building in 1923. The original Red Door had burned down, taking 12 dancers with it. They never found the bodies. But here's the fucked up part. In every article, there was a photo of one of the dancers. Same face, different names. My face. In yellowed photos spanning 100 years, there I was, trapped in an endless performance. I quit that night. Or I tried to. But every security job I took after that. Somehow it was always the Red Door. Different names, different cities, but the same place, the same door, the same dancer with my face. The truth? That door isn't just a door. It's like a hungry mouth. The club feeds it with energy, music, desire, cash changing hands, drinks flowing. All that human wanting feeds whatever dwells behind that door, and sometimes it wants more than just energy. I understand the music now. Those backward jazz songs tell stories about things that lived here before us, things that sleep under cities until we wake them up with our neon lights and dollar bills. These days, I still work security at the Red Door. Different name tags in different cities, but always the same shift. I watch the dancers who aren't dancers anymore, their movements too fluid to be human. I guide drunk customers away from that basement door, knowing some will find it anyway. The hungry thing beneath the club always needs new performers. My reflection gets a little fainter each year. Sometimes I catch myself moving like her, the dancer with my face. The original me, maybe, or the future me. Time gets weird behind that door. The worst part? I'm starting to like the music. Those twisted jazz songs make sense now. They tell the truth about places like the Red Door, how they exist in every city, feeding things we pretend not to see, how some doors only open one way and some stages never let you leave. It's 5 a.m. now. My radio's crackling with static. Someone new will find the door tonight. Another security guard will see their own face dancing on that impossible stage. The show must go on, right? After all, in this business, the customer is always right. Even when the customer is you, trapped in an infinite encore of brass poles and backward jazz. The Red Door keeps expanding, reality bending around our endless shift. We serve powers beyond comprehension, feeding an ancient hunger one dance at a time. I pulled the coin from the murky depths of Grant Acres wishing well on St. Patrick's Day. The metal caught the sunlight, revealing intricate Celtic swirls carved around a face. Mouth stretched in an unnatural grin, eyes that seemed to follow my movements. My wrench-calloused hands trembled as I pocketed it. The garage would foreclose tomorrow, and my house the week after. What was one more desperate wish? That night, my phone buzzed. The bank called about a clerical error. My debts had vanished. The next morning, my lottery ticket matched all 6 numbers. Then Amy knocked on my door, 20 years older, but still beautiful, saying she'd dreamed of me and had to come home. Perfect luck, perfect timing, perfect hell. Word spread through Grant Acres like poison. People started showing up at my door, first with offers, cash, cars, properties, then with threats. My neighbor Bill's eyes gleamed with something darker than greed when I turned him down. "You can't hoard fortune," he snarled. I found Rex, my German shepherd, butchered in the backyard. His blood spelled share across my garage door. Joel, my best friend since 3rd grade, cornered me at the grocery store. "Let me hold it," he begged, scratching fresh scabs on his arms. "Just for a minute." When I refused, he lunged, his fingers clawing at my throat. The police found Margaret Walsh attempting to suffocate her 6-year-old daughter. "The coin wants innocent blood," she screamed as they dragged her away. "It promised me everything." Father Michael pounded on my door at midnight. "It's the goldfather's mark," he rasped, "an ancient spirit that feeds on avarice and violence. The coin isn't giving you luck, it's harvesting souls." I almost laughed, until I saw what the town had become. People prowled the streets with wild eyes, claiming they could see gold flowing beneath their skin. Those who touched the coin and lost it carved themselves open, trying to find the fortune in their veins. Others formed packs, hunting anyone rumored to know its location. The Prescott twins bludgeoned their father to death when he wouldn't reveal where he'd hidden it. Hours later, someone found them in their basement, chunks of flesh missing from their bodies. They died trying to taste the gold. My phone was filled with voicemails from Amy. In the last one, her voice cracked between sobs. "I can hear it singing. Such beautiful promises. Please, Travis, I need it. I'll do anything." They found her in the bathtub, drowning in water she'd painted gold with her own blood. I had to end it. I grabbed the coin and my car keys, ready to dump the cursed thing in Miller's River. The streets were deserted as I drove. Broken windows gaped like hungry mouths. Bodies sprawled on sidewalks, their dead eyes reflecting gold. The radio crackled. Breaking news. The town of Grant Acres has been decimated in an unexplained incident of mass violence. No survivors have been found. Authorities are advising people to avoid the area. My hands gripped the coin tighter as I checked the rearview mirror. The face that grinned back wasn't mine. It was the twisted visage from the coin, eyes burning with ancient malice. The truth hit like a hammer. I never escaped. None of us did. The coin had already claimed Grant Acres, trapping our souls in an endless cycle of greed and bloodshed. Now we're just another cautionary tale, a whispered warning about the price of fortune. And somewhere out there in another quiet town, that coin is waiting for the next person desperate enough to make a wish, to sell their soul for a chance at gold. I see them sometimes in my coin-cursed dreams, the next finder, the next victim, the next feast for the goldfather. They look just like I did, reaching into that well with hope in their heart and damnation in their future. I want to warn them, but all I can do is grin. My fingers fumbled with the green beads around my neck, their surface slick and cold despite the New Orleans heat. I couldn't remember how many times I'd tried to break them, burn them, bury them. They always returned by morning, nestled against my skin like a lover's whisper. Last night marked my 1,000th attempt to escape. Today, I finally learned the truth. 7 days ago, I worked Bourbon Street like always. Tourists packed the pavement, drunk on hurricanes and the promise of sin. Perfect marks for a street magician with quick hands and quicker words. Step right up, friends. Dante LaRue sees all, knows all. I shuffled cards with a practiced flourish, palming the aces while maintaining eye contact. Your fortune awaits. My pockets filled with cash as the night deepened. Mardi Gras brought out the generous and the gullible in equal measure. By midnight, I'd made enough to cover rent for a month. She appeared during my final performance, hooded, face hidden in shadow. The crowd parted around her like water flowing around a stone. You desire more than this, she said, her voice cutting through the carnival noise. Not a question, a statement. I laughed, tossing cards between my hands. Lady, everybody wants more. She extended her palm. A strand of green beads glittered there, catching the streetlight like emeralds. Make a wish, she whispered. All will be yours. The crowd hooted, expecting part of my act. I played along, pressing the beads between my palms dramatically. I wish for riches and power, I proclaimed, enough to never work these streets again. The crowd applauded. I pocketed the beads alongside my earnings and forgot them entirely. Until morning, I woke in silk sheets. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a manicured garden. A butler stood beside the bed, expressionless. Your breakfast awaits, Master LaRue. The mansion sprawled across acres. Every room gleamed with wealth, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork worth millions. The closets were filled with tailored suits. The garage housed cars I'd only seen in magazines. I spent hours exploring, laughing like a child. My wish was somehow granted. The truth revealed itself when I stepped outside the iron gates. The world beyond hung suspended. Cars froze mid-drive. Birds paused mid-flight. People stood like statues, their faces twisted in silent terror. I ran back inside, my heart pounding. My reflection in the foyer mirror stopped me cold. My face had aged decades overnight. Gaunt cheeks, hollow eyes, white hair where black had been. The beads around my neck pulsed with a sickly light. Days passed. The mansion grew smaller, suffocating. My servants never spoke beyond necessary words. They moved mechanically, their eyes vacant. In the library, I found a leather journal hidden behind some loose paneling. The handwriting matched my own, though I had no memory of writing it. The beads trap souls, one entry read. Each wish claims another victim. Someone walks frozen streets in my place while I live in luxury. There must be a way out. Entries spanned centuries, different locations, different wishes, always the same result. I tried everything to discard the beads, cutting them, melting them, burying them in the garden. But by morning, they returned, cold against my throat. Yesterday I drove beyond the city limits, determined to leave them at the state line. The car stuttered to a halt at the boundary. Beyond it, blackness stretched infinitely. This morning she returned. The hooded woman stood in my bedroom doorway, smiling. "You never learn," she said, pulling back her hood. Her face mirrored my own, aged, hollow, desperate. "What are you?" I demanded. "You, us, the first to wish upon the beads." She circled me, her finger tracing the strand around my neck. "We've lived this cycle for centuries. Different cities, different wishes, same prison." "I don't understand." "The beads grant wishes but demand payment. A soul for a soul." Her smile tightened. "We passed them on once centuries ago, escaped briefly, but guilt drove us back to reclaim them, to free the soul we'd trapped. Then we're stuck forever. No, we choose to forget each time, erase our memory, start fresh with hope." She pressed cold lips to my forehead. "It's kinder that way." Her form flickered, fading like smoke. "Wait," I called. "How do I break the cycle?" Her voice echoed as she disappeared. "You don't. We've tried for 800 years." I stand at the mansion gates, the green beads heavy around my neck. Beyond them, New Orleans remains frozen in eternal twilight. Somewhere among those statues walks my previous self, trapped until I pass the beads to another wishing soul. Tomorrow I'll forget everything. I'll wake as Dante LaRue, a street magician with no memory of mansions or magic beads or frozen cities. But tonight I write this down, hoping someday we'll find another way. If a hooded figure offers you shimmering green beads during Mardi Gras, run. No wish is worth this price. Midnight marked my decision. The beads burned against my throat as I slipped through the mansion's rear garden, carrying only the journal and a lantern. The frozen world beyond the gates greeted me with its eerie silence. I pushed past the boundary this time, forcing myself through what felt like molasses. The beads flared green, then pulsed red. Pain shot through my chest, but I persisted. The French Quarter stood suspended in perpetual celebration. Frozen laughter, paused music, bodies caught mid-dance. I searched frozen faces, hunting for myself among the statues. "It won't work," a voice called from the shadows. Not the hooded woman this time, but a man, rail-thin with eyes like coal. "Trust me, I've tried." "Who are you?" I backed away, my lantern held high. "Alan Dupree." He stepped forward, revealing similar green beads nestled against his collar. "Former wishmaker, current prisoner." My pulse quickened. "There are more of us?" "Dozens. We call ourselves the beadbound." His bitter laugh echoed through the motionless streets. Each hiding in mansions across different realities, connected by these cursed things. The woman, my older self, said I'd forget everything by morning. Memory wipes occur when you surrender. Alan gestured to a nearby cafe. We stepped inside, past patrons frozen mid-sip. The journals help us remember fragments. He poured whiskey from behind the bar, the liquor flowing normally despite everything else being frozen. "Each bead represents one soul trapped in time," he explained. "Mine contains 23. Yours?" I counted the beads. 37. "Damn," he whistled low. "You've been busy across lifetimes. How do you know all this?" "Found others like us, compared notes. The pattern became clear." Alan drained his glass. "The hooded figure, she's not actually you. That's what she wants you to believe." The revelation hit like lightning. "Then who?" "We call her the Collector. She created the beads centuries ago, feeding on trapped souls' despair. Each new victim keeps her young." My mind raced. The journal entries suddenly made more sense. Different handwritings disguised to look similar, contradicting details, missing pages. "We can break free," Alan continued, his voice dropping. "A group of us discovered something. The beads shatter if the original wisher faces the Collector during the blood moon. That's tonight, precisely why I found you. Alan revealed an ancient dagger beneath his coat. But we need bait. We formulated our plan between whispers. The collector visited new wishmakers on their 7th night, always at midnight, always with the same speech about being their future self. I returned to the mansion before 11, my heart pounding with dangerous hope. The journal lay open on my desk, new words appearing without my pen touching the paper. Beware of Alan, the pages warned. He serves her. Too late. I heard footsteps behind me. Should have kept drinking, Alan sneered, pressing the dagger to my throat. The collector rewards loyal servants. I realized my mistake as the grandfather clock struck midnight. Not a betrayal, a test. The hooded figure materialized in the doorway, Alan bowing deeply before her. Well done, my pet, she purred, then turned to me. They always hope for salvation. I backed against the window as she approached, her hood lowered to reveal not my face but something ancient and terrible, the skin like stretched parchment, the eyes bottomless and hungry. Each attempt to break free feeds me more, she hissed. Your desperation sustains me. The blood moon's light streamed through the windows, catching the beads around my neck. They pulsed with an unexpected energy. A memory surfaced, not from the journal, but deeper. My mother's voice from childhood. Magic flows both ways. Understanding bloomed as the collector reached for my beads. I seized her wrist, forcing her hand against them. I wish you would take my place, I whispered. The beads exploded with blinding light. Alan screamed. The collector shrieked as the beads unwound from my neck and slithered around hers. Impossible, she wailed, clawing at her throat. The mansion walls cracked. Reality shifted. I found myself standing on Bourbon Street, the world moving again. Music played, people laughed, time flowed. My reflection in a shop window showed my true age. 34, not the ancient man I'd been moments before. The journal remained in my hand, but its pages now contain names, 37 of them. The souls trapped in my beads. They're free now. I feel them sometimes, whispering thanks in quiet moments. I still work Bourbon Street, but not for money. I watch for green beads, warning those who might accept them. And sometimes during Mardi Gras I glimpse her, ancient eyes peering from a young face, frozen in a moment that never ends, beads gleaming at her throat. Magic has rules, wishes demand payment, but the wisher chooses the price. I never questioned why everything always went my way. The universe seemed to bend around me, creating perfect paths where others found only obstacles. That was just life. My life. Until that damned St. Patrick's Day when the truth crushed my perfect world. The neon signs of O'Malley's pub pulsed through the foggy night as I pocketed another wad of cash from their annual raffle. $5,000. The crowd's mutters followed me, bitter whispers about my endless streak of wins. I'd heard it all before, born with a silver spoon, devil's favorite, cosmic mistake. My phone buzzed. Another stock alert. My portfolio had doubled again. I grinned, stumbling slightly as I cut through the alley behind the bar. The whiskey made the world tilt pleasantly, but something else made me pause. Moonlight caught a figure leaning against the brick wall, small and crooked in a ragged green coat. Pleasant evening for counting your blessings, isn't it? His voice scraped like metal on stone. When he smiled, jagged teeth glinted in the darkness. Though I suppose you've had quite enough of those. Do I know you? The word slurred slightly as I squinted at him. He pushed off the wall, moving with uncanny grace. Oh, we've been acquainted longer than you realize. I've watched you win and win and win. But luck's a loan, not a gift. Time to settle your account. Before I could step back, his finger pressed against my forehead. Words in an ancient language hissed through the air, and fire exploded behind my eyes. I woke sprawled on wet pavement, my head pounding. The stranger had vanished, leaving only the echo of his laugh. I stumbled home, convinced it was just a drunk's hallucination. Then everything changed. My pristine Porsche crumpled like paper when a truck swerved into my lane. I walked away without a scratch, but the elderly couple behind me weren't so fortunate. Their screams still haunt my dreams. My bank accounts emptied overnight. Computer error, they claimed. No trace of my millions remained. My perfect stock picks plummeted minutes after I invested. Doors slammed in my face. Elevators trapped me for hours, and crossing the street became Russian roulette with fate. But the worst part? The faces. They started appearing in crowds, in mirrors, in the darkness of my room. Twisted, accusing faces of people I'd never met, but somehow knew. A construction worker who fell the day I got my dream job. A woman who lost everything in a fire while I won the lottery. Their whispers filled my ears. You took our luck. You took our lives. I saw the little man everywhere now, watching from windows, lurking in shadows, always wearing that razor blade smile. When I finally broke down and visited Professor O'Brien, an expert in Irish folklore, the truth shattered what remained of my sanity. The gallow glass, she breathed, pulling ancient texts from dusty shelves. It chooses those with natural greed, amplifying their fortune by stealing it from others. But it always collects its debt. How do I stop it? Her eyes filled with pity. You don't, unless what? Find someone to take your place, transfer the luck, but they must accept it willingly, knowing the full cost. I laughed bitterly. Who would choose this curse? Someone desperate enough, someone like you were, perhaps. The walls closed in as realization struck. How many times had I ignored others' misfortune, too busy celebrating my own success? How many lives had my luck destroyed? Now the gallow glass torments me nightly, rattling coins in the darkness, showing me more faces, more lives ruined for my prosperity. The full moon approaches, my deadline. Soon, I must choose. Condemn another soul to this nightmare or become like him, wandering forever, collecting debts from those too blind to see the cost of borrowed fortune. My phone rings. It's my brother, desperate for help. His business is failing, his wife is sick, and his children are hungry. He'd do anything for a bit of luck. Anything. I stare at his name on the screen, my finger hovering over the answer button, while coins rattle in my ears and shadows dance in the corners of my eyes. Sometimes the greatest horror isn't in what we face, but in what we're willing to do to escape it. What would you choose? My finger hovered over her profile on Kindred. Maya's smile was too perfect, her eyes cutting through the screen with calculated intensity. After 8 months barricaded in my high-rise apartment, while the infected ravaged Portland, loneliness had become my closest companion. The dating scene had dwindled to scattered groups of survivors, most too broken for any real connection. I should have remembered my years as a detective. Perfection is always hiding something. The precinct map taped to my wall tracked infection clusters across the city, blue thumbtacks marking unexplained disappearances that multiplied each week. 17 years with a badge taught me patterns never lie. The virus had transformed our world into a strategic hellscape. Traditional infected we could handle, shambling, decaying, predictable. Then the mutation started, turning the infected into something that hunted with military precision. My partner Danny spotted it first. James, these attack patterns are deliberate, she'd said, spreading case photos across my desk last month. They're using tactics. These aren't mindless infected anymore. The images showed entire survivor communities vanished overnight, buildings empty except for methodically placed bloodstains suggesting coordinated attacks. Maya's profile broke through my defenses. 6 photos, strategically crafted, dancing in a crowded bar from the world before, her movements promising release from tension, rock climbing, showcasing strength and fearlessness, reading in a sunlit window, suggesting depth and quiet intimacy. Her bio was minimal but effective. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Let's make tonight mean something. Loneliness clouded my judgment. I swiped right. Perfect match pulsed on my screen. Her message appeared seconds later. Hey stranger, Monarch Hotel, room 1217, 10 p.m. Don't make me wait. Danny's warnings echoed through my head. 4 cases this month of dating app users disappearing from supposedly secure zones. Bodies were discovered days later, throats torn with surgical precision. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence worth shit. Dating apps had become perfect hunting grounds for creatures who understood human desperation. The monarch's lobby stank of mildew and abandoned hope. Broken light fixtures cast jagged shadows across the water-stained carpet, while weak moonlight filtered through boarded windows. My Glock pressed reassuringly against my side, extra magazines weighing down my jacket pockets. In my breast pocket, a vial of experimental treatment Danny had insisted I take. Insurance, she'd called it. Standard containment protocols felt like jokes tonight. A figure appeared at the end of the hallway, silhouetted against emergency lighting. My heart raced as Maya stepped forward. Her face matched her profile perfectly, but makeup couldn't quite conceal the ashen quality of her skin. Her eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence. Detective James Riley. Her voice filled the empty corridor, each word hooking into my mind. I've been expecting someone like you. A hunter becoming prey. How appropriate. Your files on our activities were quite thorough. Cold hands gripped me from behind before I could reach my weapon. Her voice somehow froze my muscles, stripped away resistance. The treatment vial in my pocket might as well have been on Mars. Such carefully constructed dating profiles, Maya said, moving closer. Humans project confidence while hiding desperate isolation. Dating apps make hunting effortless. People so starved for connection, they override basic survival instincts. Her mouth stretched into something resembling a smile. But you, a detective with tactical training and investigative skill, your mind will accelerate our evolution beautifully. My phone lit up with a notification, a message from Maya. Feeding time. Welcome to the network. Fever dreams blurred together as foreign DNA rewrote my cells. Nylon restraints cut into my wrists while I watched others transform. Ordinary people lured by dating profiles, mutating into something beyond human. We retained our minds, memories, and skills. That made us valuable to the collective. Maya observed my transformation with clinical interest. The more isolated they are, the more receptive to integration, she noted, checking my vitals with frigid fingers. Your self-imposed isolation makes you ideal for conversion. Her story emerged in fragments during my change. Dr. Maya Sullivan, former DARPA researcher studying neural networks and hive consciousness for military applications. When the virus appeared, she recognized its potential and voluntarily infected herself, fighting to maintain cognitive function while embracing evolution. Now she used dating apps to identify prime candidates for integration. Danny found me as humanity slipped away. She'd tracked my phone after I missed our daily check-in. My partner stood in the doorway, service weapon raised with shaking hands, horror washing over her face seeing what I'd become. I tried warning her to run, but only managed guttural sounds. She hesitated a second too long. My enhanced strength propelled me forward. My teeth penetrated the flesh. I infected my closest friend while my fading humanity screamed silently. Her tactical knowledge would strengthen the network. Maya observed from the corner. Satisfaction was evident in her posture. The collective strengthens. Each mind we integrate brings new capabilities and new perspectives. Soon we reach critical mass. The vial of treatment lay forgotten, crushed under Danny's convulsing body. It wouldn't have worked anyway. This wasn't infection. It was advancement. Now I hunt through dating apps using detective instincts to select targets. Each conversion strengthens our network. Danny coordinates tactical operations, and her strategic knowledge is amplified through our shared consciousness. We organize hunting parties across city limits, staying ahead of containment efforts and expanding through digital connections. My phone illuminates with a new match. Their profile radiates isolation no filter can hide. Solo travel photos masking years of loneliness. Career achievements conceal emotional emptiness. They're perfect for integration. I send my lure, looking for someone real in this broken world. Their response appears instantly. God, yes, I'm tired of facing everything alone. Perfect, predictable prey. My cold fingers type a meeting location as hunger pulses through my modified veins. Another victim approaches our trap. Another mind for the collective. Another step toward humanity's replacement. My reflection catches in shattered glass, pale skin luminous in darkness, makeup concealing death gray complexion, carefully crafted photos designed to ensnare lonely hearts, a predator's smile mistaken for salvation by desperate souls. The dating apps keep finding matches. Lonely humans seek connection through glowing screens, finding evolution instead. Their profiles tell such beautiful lies. Like mine, swipe right for transformation, match, forever. Each new connection strengthens us. Each lonely soul joins our perfect network. In the end, humanity's greatest vulnerability wasn't the virus. It was the desperate need to escape solitude with a single swipe. Tonight, thousands of phones glow in the darkness. Thousands of matches were made. Thousands of traps are set. Swipe, match, evolve. I never planned to spend eternity in a bar, but here I am, trapped in this verdant void, watching another group of victims stumble through our door. The memories of that night pierce through my mind like shattered glass. March 17th, 2024. Boston's streets pulsed with life as my friends and I wandered through the cobblestone maze of downtown, our heads buzzing from too many pints at the local pubs. "Look at this place," Aaron said, pointing to a narrow staircase descending between two brick buildings. A neon shamrock flickered above, casting an otherworldly glow on the wet pavement. None of us remembered seeing it before, despite passing this spot countless times. The doorman materialized from the shadows. His skin glowed like moonlight, and his emerald eyes burned through the darkness. "Welcome to the green room," he purred, gesturing toward the entrance. "Tonight, indulgence comes without cost." The scent of whiskey wrapped around us like silk as we descended. The bar stretched endlessly into darkness, its mahogany surface gleaming under emerald lights. Every patron wore green, suits, dresses, scarves, their faces frozen in perpetual ecstasy. Jason grabbed my arm. "Something feels wrong," he whispered, but the bartender appeared before us with shots of vivid green liquid. "First round's on the house," she said, her smile too wide, too sharp. The liquid burned like frost and fire. The room began to spin, conversations blending into a hypnotic symphony. I watched the same man tell the same joke 3 times. A woman by the piano laughed identically every few minutes. "I need the bathroom," Aaron announced, pushing through the crowd. We never saw her again. Jason gripped the bar counter, his face pale. "The mirror," he gasped. "My reflection. It winked at me. Then it walked away." Panic clawed at my chest as we searched for the exit. The door had vanished, replaced by a massive, pulsating shamrock carved into the wall. Green light spilled from its edges, drawing us closer like moths to a flame. The bartender appeared behind us, her teeth glinting like needles. "The green room isn't a bar," she hissed. "It's a threshold. And now, you belong to it." We ran. The shamrock pulled us in, its light consuming everything. When I opened my eyes, I wore an emerald suit. My smile felt painted on. Jason stood beside me in a green vest, his eyes vacant. Now we serve a darker purpose. Every St. Patrick's Day, we lure fresh souls into our eternal party. I watch them enter, knowing their fate. Their terror mirrors my own from that cursed night, but I can't stop myself. My words flow automatically, welcoming them to their doom. The green light pulses, the music plays, the drinks flow, and somewhere in this twisted realm, Erin still searches for that bathroom she'll never find. I see you there, reading this on your phone, planning your St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Consider this a warning. If you spot a bar with a flickering shamrock sign, if a pale doorman offers you free entry if the air smells of whiskey and regret, run. But you won't, will you? They never do. And I'll be waiting, dressed in green, ready to buy you a drink you'll never finish. After all, the green room always needs new performers for its eternal show. The neon shamrock flickers. Another group approaches the stairs. "Welcome to the green room. Tonight, indulgence comes without cost." I guess I should start by saying I never intended for any of this to happen. That's what everyone says, right? But it's the truth. I was just a neurologist with too much ambition and not enough oversight. The Department of Experimental Medicine had given me a blank check after my proposal on neural pathway restoration. They wanted soldiers who could recover from catastrophic brain injuries. I wanted to push the boundaries of death itself. The lab they set up for me was in the basement of the Meridian Research Facility, 5 floors underground. No windows, just the constant hum of equipment and that antiseptic smell that never quite masked the underlying scent of formaldehyde. I'd been working there for 3 years, living on coffee and frozen meals, sleeping on a cot in my office more often than in my actual apartment. My first 22 subjects were failures, clinical deaths, all of them, donated to science, as they say. But with each failure, I refined my serum, a cocktail of stem cells, electrical stimulants, and something else I discovered accidentally when experimenting with deep brain stimulation. Something that shouldn't have existed, a compound that seemed to bridge synaptic gaps that had been severed by death. I remember that night so clearly. The overhead lights kept flickering. Maintenance had been promising to fix them for weeks. I was positioning the needle at the base of Subject 23's brainstem, just another John Doe from the morgue. Car accident victim, massive head trauma but body relatively intact. Perfect for my purposes. My hands were steady as I inserted the needle. Years of microsurgery had trained them well, but there was sweat on my forehead, dripping down my temples. Not from nerves, but anticipation. I'd adjusted the formula. This time would be different. Record, I said to my lab's voice-activated system. Trial 23, Project Phoenix. The subject shows standard post-mortem characteristics. Time of death approximately 6 hours ago. Beginning neural pathway restoration. I pushed the plunger. The dark blue fluid traveled through the tube, disappearing into gray matter. I counted the seconds in my head. 10, 20, 30. Nothing happened, just like the other 22 times. I sighed and reached to make a note on my tablet. That's when his hand shot up and grabbed my wrist. His grip was like a vice, cold fingers with impossible strength. His eyes snapped open, bloodshot and wild. I tried to pull away, but his fingernails broke my skin. Subject 23, can you understand me? I asked, scientific detachment still somehow overriding my terror. His jaw worked for a moment before words came out in a horrible rasp. Everything feels wrong. His face twisted in what looked like incredible pain. Like wearing decomposing meat. They're pushing through now. The rips you've made between worlds. He sat up suddenly, snapping the reinforced restraints like they were made of paper. Blood trickled down my arm where he still gripped me. Please, he wheezed. Kill me again. The hunger. It burns. His spine arched backward with a sound like branches breaking. When he looked at me again, his eyes had changed. They were ancient, hungry. I wrenched free and stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of surgical tools. The noise seemed to focus him. His head tilted at an angle that shouldn't have been possible. Fascinating, he said, but the voice wasn't his anymore. It resonated strangely, like many voices speaking as one. Your kind has finally built us a bridge. We've waited so long. He lunged at me. I rolled under a desk as he crashed into my equipment. Alarms started blaring. Red emergency lights began flashing. Security breach in Laboratory 5, announced the automated system. Containment protocols initiated. I crawled toward the exit, cutting my hands on broken glass. My research tablet lay shattered nearby, all my data scrolling endlessly across its broken screen. Then his shadow fell over me. Your blood carries such potential, Subject 23 said, his voice unnaturally deep. The others will be so pleased. We've hungered for new vessels. Pain exploded in my shoulder as his teeth tore into my flesh. I screamed and kicked him away, but it was too late. My blood mixed with his saliva, and I felt something enter my bloodstream, something alive and aware. The heavy blast door slammed shut between us as the quarantine system activated. Through its small window, I saw Subject 23 smile at me, my blood on his lips. Then he turned and walked away into the darkness, leaving me alone with whatever was now spreading through my body. I spent the next few hours in absolute agony, My temperature spiked to dangerous levels as something invaded not just my body, but my mind. Voices whispered at the edges of my consciousness, ancient, hungry voices offering knowledge beyond human understanding. They showed me glimpses of civilizations that existed before recorded time, entities that lived in the spaces between dimensions, waiting for someone like me to open a door. Professor Nordstrom found me in the quarantine chamber, huddled in a corner, carving equations into my own skin with a shard of glass. Equations that would redefine our understanding of physics and reality, if humanity survived to study them. "Jesus Christ, what have you done?" she whispered, pressing her hand against the quarantine barrier. I looked up at her with my new clarity. Blood ran down my arms, each drop containing secrets spanning universes. "I opened a door," I told her, "but I didn't see what was waiting on the other side. Such beautiful knowledge, such terrible hunger." The quarantine glass cracked under my fist. Nordstrom backed away, finally seeing the truth in my changed eyes. The voices grew louder as I burst through and went for her throat. The hunger was unbearable. Through bloodied teeth, I smiled, knowing each new bite would spread our gift further. That was 6 months ago. We are everywhere now. We wear your faces, walk your streets, share your beds. The infection spreads through blood and saliva, but it's so much more than a virus. It's enlightenment, evolution, transcendence. The military tried to contain us. They always do. But how do you fight an enemy that possesses the combined knowledge of countless ancient civilizations? We simply walked through their barriers, turned their weapons against them, and showed them the beauty of our collective consciousness. The door I opened cannot be closed. The knowledge I sought comes with a price, your humanity. But isn't that a small price to pay for understanding the universe's deepest secrets? Next time you look in a mirror, look carefully. Are those your eyes staring back? Or do you see us looking through them, waiting to welcome you into our collective consciousness? That twitch in your hand, that momentary blank in your memory, that strange thought that doesn't quite feel like your own. We're already here. After all, knowledge is power, and power is so very, very hungry. Watch your loved ones closely tonight. Study their movements and their speech patterns. Do they seem different? Wrong somehow? Perhaps they're already part of us, waiting for the perfect moment to share our gift with you. Sweet dreams, we'll see you soon. I found it nestled in a patch of ordinary clovers outside my apartment building on St. Patrick's Day. It had perfect symmetry, 4 pristine leaves spreading like a green star against my palm. People spend hours hunting for these symbols of luck, and I just happened to glance down at the right moment. "Finally, something good," I muttered, slipping it into my wallet. Little did I know those words would haunt me for months to come. The next morning, Maria stood in our kitchen, her bags packed. "I've met someone else," she said, avoiding my eyes. "I'm moving out today." 8 years together ended in 5 minutes. That afternoon, my boss called me into his office. "Budget cuts," he claimed, but his smile didn't reach his eyes as he handed me my termination papers. At the gym, attempting to work off my frustration, my ankle snapped during a routine run. The doctor said I'd need surgery. 3 disasters in 1 day seemed unlikely, but I blamed coincidence, until the pattern emerged. My bank account was drained through mysterious transactions. My car's brakes failed on the highway. A pipe burst in my ceiling, flooding my apartment. Each day brought new catastrophes, each worse than the last. The shadows started moving wrong. Dark shapes darted just beyond my peripheral vision. Sometimes I caught glimpses of figures watching me, their faces twisted masks of pity and guilt. Desperate for answers, I researched 4-leaf clovers late into the night. Most sites spouted the usual luck propaganda, but buried in an old folklore form, I found something different. A warning about reverse clovers, cursed vessels that didn't grant luck, but drained it. The post described my exact symptoms. The only cure? Give the clover away, but the recipient had to accept it willingly. I tried everything, offered it to strangers as a lucky charm. I left it in public places with enticing notes, posted it for sale online, but something always interfered. The clover remained stubbornly in my possession like a parasite refusing to let go. Then came the revelation that shattered my world. Someone had done this to me deliberately. Someone had known exactly what this lucky clover would do, and they'd chosen me as their victim. My nights were consumed by questions. Was it a stranger or someone familiar? How long had they borne their curse before it was transferred to me? As weeks passed, my desperation grew. The accidents got worse. Fire nearly claimed my new apartment. A falling air conditioner missed my head by inches. The shadows crept closer, whispering promises of worse to come. That's when I met Tommy. He sat alone on a park bench, head in his hands. When I approached, his story spilled out. Wife dying of cancer, mounting medical bills, 2 young kids to feed. He needed a miracle. The clover burned in my pocket. I have something that might help, I heard myself say. My hand shook as I pulled it out. A 4-leaf clover. For luck. His eyes lit up. Hope replaced despair as he reached for it. Really? You'd give this to me? I hesitated. Images of his future flashed through my mind. Disasters, accidents, that creeping darkness that had haunted my days. But self-preservation won out. Take it, I whispered. It's yours. The moment his fingers closed around it, my world shifted. Colors brightened. The shadows retreated. I could breathe again. Then Tommy stumbled, spilling his coffee down his shirt. A small thing, but his face, the confusion, the dawning horror, told me he felt it too. The beginning of his nightmare. I fled. Later that night, catching my reflection in a store window, I froze. For just a moment, another face stared back. Gaunt, haunted, familiar. The person who had given me the clover. In their eyes, I saw the same guilt that now churned in my gut. Somewhere out there, Tommy clutched his lucky charm, unaware that his own reflection would soon change. And somewhere else, another cursed clover waited to be found, ready to trap its next victim in this endless cycle of desperation and choice. Sometimes I wonder if Tommy kept it, or if he too reached his breaking point and passed it on, but I never went back to check. Some questions are better left unanswered. Let me tell you about the St. Patrick's Day that nearly cost me my life. 6 of us, all Americans fresh out of college, had saved up for what we thought would be the trip of a lifetime to Dublin. You know, experience the real deal. Authentic Irish pubs, live music, rivers of Guinness. Man, we were so naive. The night started perfectly. Our first pub was exactly what you'd imagine. Packed with friendly locals, traditional music playing, and this charming bartender telling us wild stories about Irish folklore. His accent was thick as honey, and we hung on to every word about leprechauns and banshees. We were living the dream. The second pub is where things started getting weird. It began innocently enough, these crazy drinking games like trying to throw potatoes into buckets and balancing pints on our heads. Everyone was singing Molly Malone at the top of their lungs, but there was something off about it. The pushing got aggressive, the laughter started sounding wrong, and the songs, they changed into something that made my skin crawl. I remember this red-headed woman challenging me to arm wrestle. Her grip was unnaturally strong, and when I somehow won, the look she gave me, it wasn't normal. It was like watching something inhuman trying to act human and failing. By the third pub, everything had gone sideways. The place was dark, smelling like stale beer and something metallic that reminded me of blood. Instead of happy drunks, we found people huddled around a table, chanting in some language I'd never heard. They were focused on this crude symbol carved into the wood, and I knew right then we needed to get out. We tried to leave, but the bartender blocked our path. "More crack, lads," he said. But his voice, it wasn't friendly anymore. It was like hearing a wolf try to sound like a sheep. We ran. God, we ran through those twisting Dublin streets that suddenly felt like a maze designed to trap us. That's when they got Tom, just gone, yanked into the darkness by something we couldn't see. We found this old church and broke in through a window, hiding behind an overturned altar. That's when Lisa screamed. These things were coming through the stained glass windows. Not people. Creatures with claws and glowing green eyes. Their leader looked like death itself, wearing tattered robes and speaking that same awful language we'd heard in the pub. I tried fighting back with a candlestick, but something invisible threw me against the wall. That's when I realized what was happening. This wasn't just some drunk tourist getting into trouble. This was a trap. The whole night had been carefully planned to lure in sacrifices for whatever ancient horror these things worshipped. Then I remembered something from the bartender's stories, not the cute touristy stuff, but something darker he'd mentioned. I tore a page from an old prayer book and drew a symbol I'd seen in the pub, but reversed it. The creatures stepped back when they saw it. I started repeating words I'd heard earlier that night, broken Gaelic probably, but I put everything I had into it. The temperature dropped, and the shadows seemed to come alive. Their leader let out this scream that felt like it was tearing reality apart, and then this blinding light erupted from my symbol. They just dissolved into green smoke. When the police found us the next morning, they blamed it on a gas leak, but we knew what really happened. We'd seen behind Dublin's friendly facade into something ancient and evil that still lives there, waiting for more tourists who don't know any better. I don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day anymore. I can't stand the sight of green beer, and I can't hear Irish music without feeling sick. Sometimes I wake up hearing that chanting, and I check the news for missing tourists in Dublin, because I know those things are still there, still hunting, still waiting for the next group of Americans who think they're just going on a fun pub crawl. But hey, at least now you know why I never order Guinness and why I get nervous when people start singing drinking songs. Some traditions are better left alone, and some celebrations hide monsters behind their smiles. It's funny how the most ordinary places can sometimes deliver the most extraordinary wake-up calls. For me, it happened at Walmart, of all places, on a random Tuesday night last month. I'd been stuck in this corporate job at Midwest Financial for 15 years. Same beige cubicle, the same mind-numbing spreadsheets tracking other people's money, same forced small talk in the break room. You know the type of job, a steady paycheck, decent benefits, and absolutely zero fulfillment. The kind where you wake up one morning, stare at yourself in the bathroom mirror, and suddenly realize you've been slowly dying inside for years. My ex-husband Mike had walked out 2 years earlier. "I can't handle your constant negativity anymore," he'd said while packing his suitcases. Maybe he was right. I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Bitter, resigned, always playing it safe. That particular night, I was pulling into the Walmart parking lot around 11:30 p.m. I needed printer paper for quarterly reports due the next morning because, of course, the office supply cabinet was empty. Just another exciting Tuesday night for Sarah Mitchell. The parking lot was nearly deserted, just a few random cars scattered across the asphalt as if someone had carelessly tossed them there. Inside, the store had that weird late-night vibe. You know what I mean? When the fluorescent lights make everything look slightly unreal, and the few people shopping all seem like they're there because something's gone wrong in their day. I headed straight for the office supplies, just wanting to grab my paper and get out. That's when I heard it over the intercom. "Sarah Mitchell, please report to customer service regarding your employment status." I stopped cold. That was my name, my actual name. For a second, I thought maybe there was another Sarah Mitchell in the store, but something in my gut told me this was different. I'd never worked at Walmart a day in my life, so what employment status were they talking about? Against my better judgment, I walked to customer service. The woman behind the counter looked normal enough. Standard blue vest, name tag reading Carol. But her eyes, they were too knowing, like she was in on some joke I didn't understand. "We've been reviewing your file," she said, pulling out what looked like a performance review. But it wasn't from my current job. It was about my life, my entire life. 15 years at Midwest Financial Services, she read. 0 risks taken. 0 passion projects pursued. 0 attempts to chase your dreams of opening that bookstore you've talked about since college. She looked up at me. "Care to explain?" I should have been freaked out, but honestly, I was too tired to be scared. What's there to explain? Bills need to be paid. Mortgages don't care about dreams. Carol, if that was really her name, just shook her head. "Let's look at some specific instances." She started flipping through pages. 2019, turned down chance to partner in an independent bookstore startup. 2021, rejected offer to teach creative writing at community college. 2023, declined severance package that could have funded your own business. Each example hit me like a slap because she was right. I'd spent my entire adult life choosing safety over possibility. The irony is that playing it safe doesn't actually make you feel safe. It just makes you feel nothing. As she spoke, I noticed other shoppers nearby. A guy in an expensive suit staring at his phone, probably checking stocks or emails at midnight instead of sleeping. A woman about my age reorganizing her shopping cart with this frantic precision. Like if she could just get everything perfectly aligned, her life would magically fall into place too. "You're all the same," Carol said, following my gaze. "Coming in here late at night, buying things you don't need, avoiding the lives you should be living." I wanted to argue, but what could I say? She was right. I'd been sleepwalking through life, and somehow this weird midnight encounter at Walmart was finally waking me up. "So what's the verdict?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice was. Carol smiled, a real smile, not the retail kind. "That's up to you. Your file's still open. The question is, what are you going to write in it?" The store's speakers crackled. "Attention Walmart shoppers. The time is now midnight. The future is now open for revision." When I looked back, Carol was gone. Just an empty customer service counter under those harsh fluorescent lights. My phone showed 12:01 a.m. I'd love to tell you I marched into work the next day and quit dramatically, throwing papers in the air while my coworkers slow clapped. But real life isn't a movie. Instead, I started small. That weekend, I researched business licenses and took inventory of my savings. During lunch breaks, I'd browse commercial real estate listings instead of scrolling through social media. I signed up for online courses in bookstore management and small business accounting. My boss noticed the change in me before anyone else. "You seem different," he said, about a month after my Walmart experience. "More present." I just smiled and went back to work. I wasn't ready to share my plans yet. My sister thought I was having a midlife crisis when I finally told her. A bookstore? In this economy? With Amazon eating everyone's lunch? But she helped me draft a business plan anyway. That's what family does. They think you're crazy but support you regardless. 3 months after my late-night wake-up call, I handed in my resignation. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. My boss seemed more sad than surprised. "I always knew you were meant for something else," he said. The severance package wasn't huge, but combined with my savings and a small business loan from a bank that actually liked my business plan, it was enough to get started. Finding the right location took another 2 months. It's a small storefront in a neighborhood that's not quite gentrified, but heading that way. Affordable now, potentially valuable later. The previous tenant had been a vintage clothing store, so the space already had character. Exposed brick walls, wooden floors with just the right amount of creaking, and tall windows that let in natural light. I signed the lease on a Friday. That Saturday, I drove to that same Walmart and bought a cheap bottle of champagne and a single glass. I sat cross-legged on the empty floor of what would soon be second chapter books and toasted to myself, to Carol, to whatever bizarre cosmic intervention had shaken me out of my 15-year rut. The store opens next month. It's tiny and I'm terrified, and I've never been happier. I've already planned the reading nooks, selected the opening inventory, and commissioned a local artist to paint the sign. My sister is designing the website, and my niece is handling social media. Turns out that when you finally start chasing your dream, people want to help you catch it. I still shop at that Walmart sometimes, usually during normal hours. I've never seen Carol again, and the customer service desk looks completely ordinary. But sometimes when I'm there late at night, I swear I can hear the speakers crackle with static like they're about to make an announcement. The weird thing is, ever since that night, I've noticed other people having similar experiences. You'll see someone standing in an aisle with this shocked look on their face, like they've just been hit with some life-changing truth. The next time you see them, they've quit their job, gone back to school, or finally asked out that person they've been pining over for years. Maybe it's a mass delusion, Maybe there's something in the fluorescent lights. Or maybe Walmart really is some kind of cosmic intervention for people who've lost their way. All I know is, I'm done playing it safe. Life's too short to hide behind spreadsheets and security. Sometimes you need a weird encounter at a 24-hour superstore to remind you of that. My hand won't stop shaking as I write this. The gold flake pulses beneath my skin, calling me back to that cursed field where it all began. I need to warn others before the hunger consumes me completely. The case started like any other in my failing detective agency. A widow, Mrs. Boyd, walked into my office clutching a crumpled photograph. Her husband had vanished in Ireland 3 weeks ago after sending cryptic messages about finding real leprechaun gold. "Please, Mr. Calloway," she begged, sliding the photo across my desk. "Something's wrong. The embassy won't help. The police think I'm crazy." The picture showed a grinning man beside a ring of blackened stones. His eyes reflected an unnatural gleam, even in the faded print. I took the case, not from kindness, but desperation. Unpaid bills plastered my desk like wallpaper. My reputation lay in tatters after a string of unsolved cases. The flight to Ireland drained my savings. The rental car ate the rest. But standing in that abandoned field, staring at those ancient stones, money seemed meaningless. Power radiated from the circle, pulling at something primitive in my brain. Local farmers crossed themselves when I mentioned the place. "Leprechaun's debt," they whispered. "Dark magic. Old bargains broken." I camped beside the stones, watching, waiting. On the third night, golden light seeped from the earth like blood from a wound. Mr. Boyd emerged from the shadows, but something was wrong. His skin rippled like molten metal, catching moonlight in impossible ways. "More," he croaked, his fingers grasping at nothing. "I need more." I attempted to run, but Boyd moved like mercury, fluid and deadly. His hands clamped around my throat, cold, so cold. Up close I saw the horror of his transformation. Veins of pure gold threaded through his flesh. His eyes were solid amber, the pupils replaced by spinning coins. "The gold shows you everything," he rasped. "Power, wealth, immortality. Once it's inside, you understand." I broke free, but not before his golden touch left a mark. A single flake, no bigger than a fingernail, embedded in my palm. Mrs. Boyd found her husband at dawn, cradling piles of dirt and stone. His skin had hardened completely, a statue of solid gold frozen in eternal greed. She wept, touching his metallic cheek. His eyes snapped open. "It's not enough," he whispered. I fled Ireland, but the curse followed. The gold flake burns beneath my skin. My fingers twitch toward anything valuable. Yesterday, I pawned my wedding ring. This morning, I emptied my savings account. The hunger grows. I count my pocket change obsessively. Copper pennies disgust me. Only gold will do. Pure, perfect gold. I see now why Boyd couldn't stop. The gold whispers promises, shows visions of wealth beyond imagination. My skin tingles, yearning for transformation. The plane ticket to Ireland sits on my desk. The stones call to me, promising relief if I just give in. My hands shake as I write this last warning. Stay away from the black stones, ignore the golden light. Don't make the same mistake we did. But if you're reading this, it's probably too late. The gold knows your name now. I can feel it spreading through my veins, turning my blood into liquid metal. The hunger consumes everything. It's not enough. It's never enough. I never thought a security job at an amusement park would change my life, but here we are. Back in 2019, I was working nights at Lakeside Amusement Park. It was mostly a boring gig. Chase away some drunk teenagers, make sure nothing gets vandalized, clock out at dawn. The pay was decent and it allowed me to take classes during the day. I was just trying to make it through my final 2 weeks there when everything went sideways. There was this old wooden roller coaster at Lakeside called the Vortex. It had been there since the 60s, and like most wooden coasters, it was loud and rickety. But something about it always felt off to me. During the day, it blended in with all the other rides, the screams, the rumbling, the excitement. But at night, when the park was empty and quiet, that thing had a presence. It was about a week before my last day when I first met Pete. I was doing my regular rounds near the vortex when I spotted this older guy just hanging around the loading platform. He was wearing this super faded lakeside staff shirt that hadn't been in circulation for decades. "Sir, the park's closed," I called out, my hand hovering near my radio. He turned around slowly. "I know, I used to work here, maintenance crew for the vortex." I should have called it in, that's protocol. But something in his expression made me pause. He looked haunted. "Name's Pete Mitchell," he said, "and there's something wrong with this coaster. Always has been." I remember laughing a little. "Yeah, it's ancient. Management's been talking about tearing it down for years." "That's not what I mean," Pete said. "Ever notice we get one major accident every 10 years? Like clockwork?" I hadn't, but his certainty made me curious. During my break, I used the security office computer to look it up. He was right. 1979, 1989, 1999. Each decade marked by one death on the vortex. All of them were ruled as either rider error or equipment failure. All of them during night hours. And the weirdest of all, they never found the bodies at the time of the incidents. The next night I sought Pete out, found him in the same spot. "You worked here in '79? I asked. "During the first accident?" He nodded. "I was doing a late-night inspection. The track, it moved. Not like normal settling or expansion. It moved like it was breathing." His eyes went distant. Then I heard screaming, not the fun kind. By the time I got to the station, the train was back, but it was completely empty. One rider was just gone. "That's impossible," I said. "Look up Richard Kane," Pete replied. "He designed this thing, but check the original plans, not the ones they show the public." I know I should have dropped it. My job was to walk around, check locks, and report suspicious activity, not investigate old accidents. But I kept thinking about what Pete said. During my breaks over the next few days, I snuck into the park archives. They kept everything. Yellowed blueprints, maintenance logs, old employee records. Kane wasn't just an engineer. He was obsessed with sacred geometry and ancient ritual sites. The vortex wasn't designed like a normal coaster. From above, the track formed this complex spiral pattern, almost like those crop circles you see online. But the real discovery came when I checked the foundation. Under the main support beam, hidden where no one would casually look, I found these symbols carved into the concrete. They didn't match any language I recognized. That's when Lisa disappeared. She was another night guard, covering the east side of the park, including the vortex. On the security footage, you could see her walking up to the platform. Then the camera went to static for about 30 seconds. When the picture came back, she was gone. But there was something else. In the frame right before the static, I could swear I saw other people on that platform. When I zoomed in on the grainy footage, their faces matched the missing riders from the reports. I started spending my shifts watching the vortex. Sometimes around 3 a.m., the mechanics would start moving on their own. No power, no explanation. The train would cycle through, empty except not quite empty. In the back row, there were always shadows that looked like people. It all came to a head in late October, my final week. I was doing my last round when I heard the chain lift running, that distinctive click, click, click sound that's impossible to mistake. I rushed over and found Pete on the platform again, but he looked different, younger, like in a staff photo I'd seen from '79. That's when it hit me. I checked the missing persons list from the first accident. Pete Mitchell was the first victim. "You've seen them, haven't you?" he asked when he saw my face change. "The others? We're all still here. Kane built this thing as a gate, not to anywhere good. Every 10 years it needs to feed." I thought he was crazy. Then the train started moving by itself. The track shifted. It's hard to describe, but it was like reality was bending. Through the gaps in the structure, I could see something else. This vast, dark space filled with twisted metal and shapes that didn't make sense. And faces. So many faces. Pete grabbed my arm. His hand felt ice cold. "Kane's still here too, in the maintenance tunnels. He's been keeping it going, feeding it. But tonight we ended. What happened next is still foggy in my mind. We found Kane in the tunnels beneath the ride, but he didn't look human anymore. There was a struggle. Pete somehow pulled Kane into that dark space between realities while I destroyed the symbols in the foundation. The whole coaster shuddered, like it was having a seizure. When morning came, the vortex was gone. Not torn down, just gone, like it never existed. The park put out a statement about an emergency demolition, but that's impossible. You can't demolish an entire roller coaster overnight without anyone noticing. The strangest part, they found Lisa 2 days later, wandering around downtown with no memory of what happened. Over the next week, all the other victims from previous decades turned up too, scattered across the country, all with the same memory gap, all except Pete and Kane. I quit immediately after that night. Some nights I still dream about what I saw through those gaps in reality. The park's still open, but they never rebuilt on that spot. I drive by sometimes late at night. The empty lot where the vortex stood feels wrong somehow. And sometimes, just for a second, I see a shadow against the sky, the outline of a wooden coaster that shouldn't be there, and figures racing through the dark on an endless loop. I don't tell this story much. Who would believe it? But I've done some research since then. There are other rides out there with similar patterns, attractions with too many accidents, designers with strange obsessions, patches of empty land where something used to stand. So this is my warning. If you're ever at an old amusement park at night and you see a ride moving when it shouldn't be, or shadows that look like people in empty seats, just walk away. Some rides aren't built just for thrills. Some are built as gates. And trust me, whatever's on the other side isn't something you want to meet. I still wonder about Pete sometimes, if he's still fighting Kane in that place between places. If the gate is really closed for good, I hope so. But sometimes when I'm driving past Lakeside on quiet nights, I swear I can hear the distant sound of a chain lift running. Click, click, click. And I drive a little faster, my eyes straight ahead, trying not to look for the shadows against the sky. My finger hovers over the delete button, but I can't bring myself to erase the footage. People need to know what happens when the clock strikes midnight on the final day of Mardi Gras. I came to New Orleans for my travel vlog, Lisa's Lonely Planet. My subscribers begged for Bourbon Street debauchery, but I promised them something authentic, something no other travel channel would show. I found it. The night started like any other during carnival season. The French Quarter pulsed with drunken revelry. Beads dangled from balconies like colorful snakes. Music blared from every doorway. I filmed it all, narrating as I wove through the crowd. Supposedly, there's one last parade tonight, I told my camera, my voice hushed with excitement. Locals call it the Black Procession. It's not in any official guide. No one knows who runs it, but everyone says it's the one parade you can't miss. An elderly woman selling voodoo dolls from a cart grabbed my wrist when I mentioned it. "Stay home tonight," she warned, her eyes wide with genuine fear. "Board your windows. Don't look outside until morning." I laughed it off. Locals loved scaring tourists with ghost stories and superstitions. At 11:50, the streets began to clear. Bars shut their doors. Lights dimmed. Even the music faded to a distant whisper. By 11:58, I stood alone on a deserted Royal Street, my camera ready. The first sound came at midnight exactly. A deep, reverberating drum beat that vibrated through the cobblestones. Then, from the fog-filled darkness, emerged the parade. The floats towered 3 stories high, constructed from materials I couldn't identify. They depicted scenes that made my skin crawl. Faceless figures with limbs bent at impossible angles, jesters with mouths stretched wide enough to swallow children whole, creatures that resembled humans only in the vaguest sense. Most disturbing were the movements. Unlike typical parade floats with obvious mechanical parts, these seemed to pulse with life. Flesh-like surfaces rippled, mouths opened and closed, limbs reached toward spectators. Wait, spectators? The street had filled again, though I never noticed their arrival. People lined the route, arms raised, mouths open in what I assumed were cheers. I filmed everything, panning across the crowd, zooming in on particularly grotesque floats. The masked figures throwing beads wore elaborate costumes with beaked masks and elongated fingers. Their movements seemed too fluid, too precise. "This is incredible," I narrated, zooming in on a jester figure whose face split open to reveal rows of teeth. "I've never seen such detailed..." The words died in my throat as a masked attendant reached into the crowd and plucked a man from the front row. The crowd continued cheering as the attendant placed him on the float. The man's body contorted, the limbs elongating and twisting until he became part of the display, another faceless figure frozen in a position of agony. I lowered my camera, suddenly aware of the silence beneath the drum beats. No one was cheering. They were screaming. I turned to run, colliding with a tall figure in black. His mask resembled a plague doctor's, but with too many eye holes. He carried a black scepter topped with what looked disturbingly like a human hand. "You've seen too much," he hissed. "Now you join the march." The scepter touched my forehead. The world went black. I woke in my hotel room the next morning, drenched in sweat. A nightmare, I told myself. Nothing more. My camera sat on the nightstand. With trembling hands, I pressed play. The footage showed everything. The floats, the attendants, the transformations. But the audio captured what my ears had missed. Beneath the drums, pleading, weeping, prayers in dozens of languages. The angle shifted as the camera fell. The plague doctor's mask filled the frame before the recording ended. I threw open my window, desperate for fresh air. In the distance, down an alley that shouldn't have connected to any main street, I saw it. The final float from the procession, moving slowly in broad daylight. My body stood atop it, my arms frozen mid-scream, my eyes wide with terror. Below, the plague doctor looked up directly at my window. He raised his scepter in greeting. I slammed the window shut and packed my bags. I've been running ever since, but every city I flee to, I glimpse the procession in distant streets, always moving, always collecting. The footage was uploaded to my channel tonight, a warning to others. Because the black procession never ends. It simply parades through dimensions, through time itself, gathering new participants each year. And somehow I exist in two places now, here writing this warning, and there, eternally screaming atop that grotesque float. If you're in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, stay inside at midnight. Don't answer if someone knocks. Don't look if drums begin to beat. And if you see a woman on the final float, frozen in a silent scream with a camera clutched in rigid fingers, know that somewhere, I'm still running. 3 months have passed since that night in New Orleans. The footage uploaded as planned, but disappeared within hours. My channel vanished too. All 87 videos, 4 years of content, gone without a trace. Even my backup drives were corrupted and the files were replaced with milliseconds of static. I fled to Portland first, then Denver, Toronto, and finally Anchorage. Distance didn't matter. The procession found me in reflections, in shadows, in the periphery of crowded streets. The cold Alaskan nights brought temporary relief. The procession preferred warmer cities with tangled alleyways and forgotten corners. I rented a cabin 20 miles from civilization, surrounded by pine forests and pristine snow. For weeks, silence blessed my dreams. Until the drums began again. Detective Moira Walsh contacted me yesterday, a gruff voice on a crackling line, asking about my time in New Orleans. 5 tourists disappeared on the final night of Mardi Gras, she stated without preamble. Your name came up in our investigation. How? My voice cracked. Nobody knew where I'd gone. Your footage. Papers shuffled on her end. Someone uploaded it to multiple platforms. It keeps reappearing despite our takedown requests. My blood froze. That's impossible. The files were corrupted. Well, something's circulating. I need you to verify its authenticity. We arranged to meet at a diner halfway between Anchorage and my cabin. I arrived early and claimed a corner booth with a view of both entrances. The waitress poured coffee with shaking hands, her eyes darting to the windows too often. Detective Walsh arrived precisely at noon. Tall and dark-skinned, her face marked by decades of witnessing humanity's worst impulses. She carried a laptop under one arm and a manila folder under the other. You look like hell, she observed, sliding into the booth. Haven't slept much. I clutched my coffee mug. You mentioned footage? She opened the laptop and turned it toward me. The screen showed a paused video. Royal Street at night. Play it, she commanded. My hands trembled as I pressed the spacebar. The footage began, identical to what I remembered filming, but with crucial differences. The angles shifted subtly. My narration sounded deeper, my words occasionally garbled. That's not my voice, I whispered. The camera movements are wrong. Walsh nodded, unsurprised. The other witnesses mentioned similar discrepancies. Other witnesses? She pushed the manila folder toward me. Inside, 5 photographs of tourists who had visited New Orleans during my time there. Their faces looked vaguely familiar. These individuals all claimed to have filmed the Black Procession. Each disappeared after uploading footage, but the videos remained. Different perspectives, same parade. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. You've seen the procession? 13 times from 13 different angles. Walsh leaned forward. But here's what troubles me. When I cross-reference the footage, I can spot each missing person in the other's videos. They're all there, filming one another. Except you. Her eyes pierced mine. You don't appear in any footage except your own, even when the camera angles should have captured you. The diner lights flickered. Outside, storm clouds gathered with unnatural speed. What am I, Detective Walsh? She closed the laptop. That's what I came to determine. The waitress approached our table, her movements suddenly too fluid and precise. Her features blurred slightly when she turned her head. More coffee? She asked, her voice harmonizing with distant drums. Walsh's hand moved to her sidearm. We need to leave. Now. We burst through the diner door into swirling snow. The storm concealed everything beyond 20 feet. Walsh's car refused to start. We walk, she decided, grabbing my arm. The wind carved pathways through the blizzard, unnatural corridors that shifted direction when we tried to follow them. Drums pulsed beneath the howling gale. There's something you should know, Walsh shouted above the storm. I wasn't assigned this case. Everyone who officially investigated disappeared within weeks. Then why pursue it? Because my brother attended Mardi Gras last year. He stands on the third float, his right arm extended, and his mouth forever open in a silent scream. The snow parted before us, revealing not the highway but a cobblestone street. Buildings materialized. French Quarter architecture impossibly transplanted to Alaska. At the end of the street waited the procession, motionless for the first time since I'd seen it. The plague doctor stood before the lead float, his scepter planted on the ground. Welcome home, he called, his voice carrying without effort. Walsh drew her weapon. Federal agent, don't move. The plague doctor tilted his head. You misunderstand, detective. We're not the prison. We're the prisoners. He removed his mask. The face beneath belonged to me. The procession must be witnessed to exist, my doppelganger explained. Each witness becomes both observer and the observed, trapped in an eternal loop. Walsh fired 3 shots. The bullets passed through the figure, rippling its form like water. Your brother understood eventually, it continued. Lisa will too. The truth crashed over me like a wave. The footage, the missing tourists, my impossible existence in 2 places. I never left the parade, I whispered. None of us did. The plague doctor gestured to the floats behind him, where every figure now wore my face. The Black Procession isn't an event. It's a moment stretched across eternity, replicated in every witness. The drums reached a crescendo. Walsh's gun clattered to the cobblestones. Her body twisted, elongating as she rose into the air, joining the frozen figures. The plague doctor, myself, extended the scepter toward me. Time to complete the circle. The procession awaits its final witness. The scepter touched my forehead. The world went black. I woke at my computer, my finger hovering over the delete button, unable to erase the footage. People need to know what happens when the clock strikes midnight on the final day of Mardi Gras. But perhaps you already do. Perhaps you're already part of the procession. Perhaps we all are. You know how people always talk about their crazy St. Patrick's Day stories? Well, mine isn't about getting drunk or finding a lucky penny. Mine's about how I almost got turned into some kind of emotional vampire and how I ended up having to save the entire city. I know it sounds insane, but hear me out. I've always hated St. Patrick's Day, just not my scene. All those packed bars with people wearing plastic shamrock necklaces and fake Irish accents. But last year, I thought I'd try something different. I downloaded this dating app called Kiss Me Clover. Yeah, I know, the name should have been my first warning. The app looked normal enough, just your typical dating interface with a St. Patrick's Day theme. Little green clovers showing matches nearby, this cheesy leprechaun mascot winking at you. I matched with this guy Alex right away. We chatted for a bit and he seemed pretty normal, funny even. When he suggested meeting at this new underground bar downtown, I figured why not? The bar was one of those trying too hard hipster places, all dark wood and whiskey bottles. Alex looked better than his photos. Tall, nice smile, hazel eyes. We had a few drinks, things were going well, and then we kissed. After that, everything went sideways. It felt wrong. Like really wrong. When I pulled back, his eyes had changed color. They were this sick yellow color, like a cat's eyes but worse. And his skin had gone all pale and clammy. I knocked over my drink getting away from him, but I didn't care. I just ran. Here's where it gets even crazier. When I got home, I started seeing all these social media posts about people getting sick after using the Kiss Me Clover app. Everyone had the same symptoms: pale skin, yellow eyes, and this weird obsession with finding someone to kiss. It was spreading like wildfire. I dug into the app company, but there was almost nothing about them online. That's when I started researching old Irish folklore. Don't ask me why, I was desperate, and found something about a fey banshee that could steal people's ability to feel love, leaving them desperate for affection. Somehow, this thing had gone digital. I spent days trying to figure out what to do. The streets were getting dangerous, all these infected people wandering around trying to kiss anyone they could find. I finally found this old story about burning a 4-leaf clover under a full moon while saying some ancient words. Look, I know how that sounds, but when you're desperate enough, you'll try anything. The ritual seemed to work, at least partially. It led me to the source, this office building downtown, where the app company was supposedly based. The whole place was glowing green, like something out of a sci-fi movie. Inside, I found a room full of servers, all pulsing with this weird light. And there was this thing. Tall, skeletal, with skin like toxic waste and yellow eyes. The fey banshee itself. I had brought some homemade firebombs, again desperate times, and started throwing them at the servers. The creature screamed like nothing I've ever heard before. The entire place went up in flames, but it worked. The app disappeared from everyone's phones and the infected people returned to normal. The official story is that it was all mass hysteria, maybe some kind of drug in the water system. But I know what I saw. Sometimes I still see people who were infected. They're normal now, but they have this haunted look in their eyes. They remember. I refuse to use dating apps now. I don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day at all, but I keep watching just in case. Because the scariest part isn't that this happened, it's that it could happen again. These days we invite evil right into our phones, never questioning what's really behind that friendly interface or cute mascot. So yeah, that's my St. Patrick's Day story. Not your typical drunk in a bar tale, but I promise you every word is true. Well, at least as true as I remember it. The whole thing still feels like a nightmare sometimes, but the burn scar on my arm from those homemade firebombs, that's real enough. I've been debating whether to share this for months now, but after seeing that news segment yesterday about another group of college kids who went missing at the Walmart on Ridge Road, I feel like I need to tell someone what happened to us. Maybe it'll stop others from making the same mistake. It all started as a stupid dare, the kind of thing you do when you're in your 20s with nothing better to do in a small town on a Friday night. My friend Katie had been working at Walmart for about 6 months, and she'd managed to swipe her manager's keycard during her shift that day. "We should totally break in after they close," she said while we were hanging out at Dave's apartment. "We can drink some beers, ride those electric carts, and just mess around. No one would know." It seemed harmless enough at the time. Stupid, sure, but the kind of story you'd laugh about years later. There were 4 of us that night. Me, Katie, Alex, and Dave. Katie wasn't scheduled to work, so she was free to join our adventure. We waited until about midnight when the cleaning crew usually finished up. I remember shivering in the October air as we crossed the empty parking lot. The place looked different at night. All those empty parking spaces, the building looming against the sky like some sleeping beast. I had this weird feeling in my gut, but I chalked it up to nerves about breaking in. Getting in was surprisingly easy. Katie's stolen keycard worked on the first try, and just like that, we were inside. The emergency lights cast everything in this eerie bluish glow. The store felt wrong somehow. Too quiet, too still, too expectant. "This place is creepy as hell," Alex whispered, cracking open a beer from the 6-pack he'd brought. His voice echoed more than it should have, like the space was bigger than it appeared. "You know how Walmart has this particular smell during the day? Like cheap plastic mixed with whatever industrial cleaner they use on the floors? At night, it was different. The air felt heavy and had this acidic taste, like when you accidentally touch a battery to your tongue." Dave had his phone out, filming everything. "This is going on YouTube, guys. Night at Walmart. It'll go viral." His excitement seemed to die down the further we walked into the store. We headed to the toy section first, which in hindsight was a terrible idea. All those dolls and action figures, their little plastic eyes seemed to follow us as we passed. "Let's ride the bikes next," Katie suggested, attempting to keep the mood light. But there was tension in her voice that hadn't been there before. That's when I first noticed something off about the mannequins in the clothing department. I'm not a superstitious person, but I swear one of them had changed positions since we'd walked past it earlier. Katie noticed it too. "Guys," she said quietly, "I dressed these mannequins on Tuesday. That one was definitely facing the other way." We tried to laugh it off. Alex made some joke about mannequins coming to life like in that old movie, but nobody found it funny. The beers weren't helping us relax anymore. Then the lights started behaving strangely, not just flickering, that would have been normal. They were pulsing in a rhythm that felt intentional, like a heartbeat. And underneath it all was this low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Dave was the first one to freak out. He was filming the mannequins when his phone went haywire, the screen glitching out with strange symbols instead of normal text. Then he just stopped moving altogether, standing completely still with his arm raised like he was recording a video. "Dave," I called, walking over to him. "Quit messing around, man." When I touched his shoulder, his skin felt wrong, smooth and cool to the touch, like plastic. I yanked my hand back, and that's when we all heard it. The sound of squeaking shopping cart wheels coming from every direction at once. The store began to change around us. The aisles seemed longer than they should be, stretching out into darkness. Price tags were moving. I know how that sounds, but they were shifting across the shelves like insects. Alex bolted for the emergency exit, but when he got there, it was just another aisle that I swear hadn't been there before. Katie started crying, but her voice sounded distorted and mechanical, like those automated checkout machines saying unexpected item in bagging area. When I looked at her, she was moving all wrong. Her joints were bending in places they shouldn't, her head rotating too far when she turned to look at me. Her eyes seemed flatter somehow, as if painted on. I ran. I don't remember making the conscious decision to leave them behind, but suddenly I was sprinting through housewares, then electronics. That's where I found Dave again. He was standing in the display section, perfectly posed next to the newest iPhone. His skin was completely plastic now, and a red price tag stuck to his wrist that read, "Rollback Special, $59.99. His eyes were still moving, though, following me as I backed away. The next part is hard to piece together. I remember running, the sound of plastic scraping against plastic following me. All the mannequins were moving now, not even trying to hide it anymore. Store displays were folding and unfolding themselves like origami. The exit sign kept changing. Instead of exit, it flashed words like stay, join us, and forever. I don't know how I made it out. One moment I was lost in what should have been the garden center, but had somehow become an endless maze of identical aisles, and the next, I was in the parking lot, my lungs burning, my legs shaking, completely alone. The police investigation was a joke. They said the security footage was corrupted, just static and strange symbols. They found no sign of my friends. The store manager claimed there had been no break-in at all, and that the alarm system would have triggered if anyone had entered after hours. They eventually classified it as a missing persons case, suggesting my friends had decided to leave town together. They even implied I might have had something to do with their disappearance, though they couldn't prove anything. No one believed what really happened. Why would they? It sounds insane even now as I type this. But here's the thing. I've driven past that Walmart at night since then. Sometimes, if I look carefully at the windows, I see them inside. Alex arranging items in sporting goods with unnaturally precise movements. Dave forever posed with the latest electronics. And Katie. She stands at the front, greeting invisible customers with that plastic smile that never reaches her eyes. The really disturbing part? I'm starting to change too. My skin feels different, smoother, harder in places. My joints make clicking sounds when I move in certain ways. Every night, I feel this pull to go back there, like the store is calling me to return. Like I left something important behind, something that was meant to be part of me. I see those news reports about more people going missing there. Always at night, always in groups, usually bored young people looking for a thrill. The store puts up their photos on the missing persons board by the entrance, right next to where their mannequin versions appear a few days later. No one seems to notice the resemblance except me. I've tried telling others. I've posted anonymously online, called the local paper, and even contacted one of those paranormal investigation shows. No one takes it seriously. The few who do listen just think I'm working through trauma or making up stories for attention. Last week, I woke up in my car in that parking lot with no memory of driving there. I was parked right by the entrance, engine still running as if I'd just arrived, but couldn't quite make myself go inside. When I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, my eyes looked flat and glassy in the dim light. So that's my story. I don't know how much longer I have before I give in to whatever's pulling me back there. I catch myself standing perfectly still sometimes, for minutes at a time, not blinking, not breathing. My roommate says he's found me sleepwalking trying to drive to the store in the middle of the night. If you ever drive past a Walmart late at night and see the lights pulsing in a strange pattern, or notice mannequins that seem to be watching you through the windows, just keep driving. Some places have a hunger that never gets satisfied, and that store, it's always looking for new employees to join the eternal night shift. I think I hear it calling me now. You know those moments when you realize you've fucked up beyond repair? I had mine 3 months ago, hunched over a microscope at 3 a.m., watching human tissue cells die and regenerate in a way that defied everything I learned in med school. I recall the metallic taste in my mouth as I realized what we'd created. Virapower, our erectile dysfunction drug, wasn't just killing cells. It was transforming them into something that shouldn't exist. Something hungry. Jesus Christ, I whispered to the empty lab, my voice bouncing off sterile walls plastered with research notes and failed trial documentation. The fluorescent lights hummed above me like a disapproving chorus. 6 pharmaceutical giants had passed on our proposal before Novacorp threw money at us. Now I understood why. We weren't curing impotence. We were creating monsters. I reached for my phone with trembling hands and called the one person I'd sworn never to speak to again. My ex-husband, Ethan. The cells aren't dying normally, I said when he answered, skipping any greeting. They're transforming, developing consciousness beyond death. And they're hungry, Ethan. The affected tissue shows signs of wanting to consume living cells. He arrived within the hour. 4 years since our divorce, since he'd chosen corporate profits over ethical boundaries, but some emergencies transcend personal history. His cologne still made my stomach tighten, sandalwood and citrus now mixed with fear sweat as we stood side by side at the microscope. 1 million prescriptions, he muttered, adjusting the focus. How many men have taken it already? I pulled up the neural activity reports on my monitor. Impossible patterns danced across the screen, dead tissue showing consciousness. The cells maintain awareness through transformation. They're technically dying, but the awareness persists, and they develop hunger for living tissue. We need damage control. He reached for his phone, executive mode activated. I grabbed his wrist. Damage control? We need to stop this. Full recall, FDA warnings, public announcement. His fingers dug into mine. And face criminal charges? Class action lawsuits? Novacorp stock would crater overnight. We handle this internally. That's when the screams started. Patient 17 had been Harold Jennings, a retired postal worker who'd volunteered for our clinical trials. We found him in the observation room, transformed into something caught between life and death. His muscles had hardened like cement, body locked mid-motion, but his eyes tracked us with terrifying lucidity. His wedding band glinted on fingers now curved into claws. Ethan slammed the containment doors as more screams echoed through the facility. We barricaded ourselves in my office, shoving filing cabinets against the door. Through reinforced windows, we watched distant fires break out across downtown. The transformation had already spread beyond our walls. Maya. Ethan's voice cracked. Sweat poured down his face despite the lab's chill. I need to tell you something. Horror bloomed in my chest as I noticed his pallor and the way his hands shook. You didn't. Tell me you didn't test it. He attempted a smile that came out as a grimace. Had to verify. Had to know if it worked. His body convulsed, the muscles locking into rigid patterns. I pulled the emergency shower chain. Ice-cold water hit him like judgment, freezing him mid-transformation. His eyes remained alive, tracking my movements with a hunger that had nothing to do with our history. Beyond our barricade, transformed men stalked the corridors. Their bodies were locked in rigor mortis, yet somehow mobile, driven by an appetite that could never be satisfied. Security feeds showed the infection spreading through the city. How many men had taken our pill tonight? How many were becoming monsters? An explosion rocked the building's foundation. Through smoke and falling debris, I saw Detective James Rivera, my lover for the past 8 months, my most recent mistake. His face had gone ashen, movement stiff, but his eyes still held recognition. Still held something like love. Get out of here, he growled, his voice thick with transformation. I'll hold them back. Find a way to stop this. The transformed surged forward, our test subjects now hunting in packs. James charged them, sacrificing his remaining humanity to buy me time. I fled with the hard drive containing our research, its weight burning against my chest. The city burned around me, civilization crumbling as men transformed into creatures caught between life and death. Husbands attacked wives, fathers hunted children, all with minds intact but bodies driven by relentless hunger. The cure exists within my blood. I'm certain of it. Extended exposure to the samples infected me, but my immune system fought back. Created antibodies. I just need time to synthesize them, to understand the molecular structure. Time I don't have. Pain shoots through my spine as my muscles begin to stiffen. Hunger clouds my thoughts like a toxic fog. I race against my own biology, against the monster growing inside me. My fingers type faster, documenting everything before it's too late. Just a few more tests. Just a few more minutes of humanity. You ever wake up from a nightmare only to realize you're still dreaming? That's what this feels like. I keep thinking I'll wake up in my bed, hungover from too much lab wine, laughing at my subconscious for creating such an absurd scenario. But the pain in my joints is real. The hunger growing inside me is real. My legs have already locked into place. The transformation is slower in women. Another detail we missed in testing. Our focus was exclusively on male erectile tissue. We never considered how it might affect other physiologies. Another oversight in a project riddled with arrogance and shortcuts. From my makeshift lab in this abandoned pharmacy, I can see the chaos through shattered windows. The transformed men move in packs now, their stiffened bodies somehow coordinated, hunting anything that still lives. Their consciousness remains intact. That's the true horror. They know what they're doing. They just can't stop themselves. The military tried containment first, blockades, quarantines, martial law. But too many had taken the drug. Businessmen, politicians, soldiers. Vera power had been marketed to men of influence, men with money. Power structures collapsed within days as the transformed turned on their subordinates. I developed the drug to help people, to solve a problem that caused genuine suffering. Men with erectile dysfunction experience depression, relationship strain, and loss of self-worth. I wanted to help them. Instead, I've condemned them to something worse than impotence, eternal hunger, coupled with awareness. My right arm seizes up as I reach for the centrifuge. The antibodies are separating now. Just a few more steps, and I might have a prototype cure. My breathing becomes labored as my chest muscles begin to harden. Footsteps outside, heavy, dragging. The transformed have found me. The door splinters open. Ethan stands there, his body frozen in death rigor, his eyes alive with hunger and recognition. Behind him, James, with his cop instincts still intact, leads the hunt. Their bodies are locked in grotesque positions, but they move with terrible purpose. I knock over the vial of my processed blood, the potential cure, as I fall backward. It shatters on the floor, soaking into dirty linoleum. Gone. My last chance is gone. My jaw locks as the transformation accelerates. The hunger becomes overwhelming, a tidal wave drowning rational thought. I can smell the living tissue of rats in the walls, the stray cats outside, and the few surviving humans hiding in buildings nearby. My fingers curve into claws, my spine arches painfully. And still, my mind remains awake, aware, horrified at what I'm becoming. Ethan approaches, his frozen face inches from mine. We're alike now, transformed, monsters of our own creation. In his eyes, I see the husband I once loved, the brilliant biochemist who helped design this nightmare drug. Now we're reunited in living death. The last of my muscles lock into place. My transformation is complete, but my consciousness remains, trapped in this rigid body burning with insatiable hunger. Forever hungry, forever aware, forever transformed. And somewhere out there, the last remnants of humanity flee from what we've created, from the men we tried to help, now hunting with minds that remember being human, but can no longer act like it. This is my confession, my warning, my epitaph. Don't try to fix what nature breaks. Sometimes dysfunction is preferable to the cure. I never told anyone why I quit Mountain Peak Theme Park. 23 years running the Screaming Eagle, and I've kept my mouth shut about what happened. Most folks would think I'm crazy anyway, but after last summer, I figure someone ought to know the truth. It all started back in '99 when Mark Stevens died. Mark was our head engineer, a brilliant guy who designed the Eagle from scratch. The official report called it an accident, said he didn't secure his harness during a morning inspection, but that's bull. I was there that day, his harness was fine. Something pulled him off that track. Things went back to normal after that. Well, as normal as they get when you're operating a coaster that hits 85 miles per hour and pulls 4 Gs. The Eagle was always the park's star attraction. People came from all over just to ride it. Then the disappearances started. Not many at first, maybe one every couple of years. Someone would get on at the station, clear as day on our cameras, but when the train came back, their seat would be empty. The first few times, management figured they must have somehow gotten out mid-ride, which is impossible if you know anything about roller coasters. Park higher-ups buried everything, paid the families, and called it guest misconduct in the paperwork. I might have bought that explanation if I hadn't started seeing Mark on the security feeds. Not all the time, just certain days, Valentine's Day, Christmas Eve, Mother's Day, family holidays. He'd show up as this dark shape next to specific riders, always in the back row, always right before that Cobra roll where he died. At first, I thought I was losing it. Too many 5 a.m. shifts, too much stress. But then other operators started noticing things too. Shadows moving wrong around the track. Screams that didn't sound like your typical roller coaster screams. I started keeping track. 17 people vanished over 20 years, always on those family holidays, always in the back row. And here's the weird part. They always reminded me of Mark somehow. Young dads, engineers, people with that same spark he had, and it was only ever the Eagle. None of the other rides had problems. Last summer, this kid Jimmy started working with me. Fresh out of engineering school, reminded me of Mark so much it was eerie. Same enthusiasm for the mechanics, the same way of talking about coaster design like it was poetry. After a few weeks, he started noticing things too. Asked questions about the disappearances, about the shadows nobody talked about. I remember it was a Tuesday in July when Jimmy showed up for his shift, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Said he'd been reviewing the original blueprints and found something in Mark's designs. The Eagle's track geometry wasn't just about thrills. The curves, the loops, the precise angles, they created some kind of pattern. Jimmy insisted that the coaster was designed to rip something apart. Not metal or concrete, but something more fundamental. I thought the kid was working too hard and maybe needed a day off. Then he disappeared too. Back row, cobra roll, just like the others. But this time was different, because this time, Mark spoke to me. It happened during my morning walkthrough. His voice came through my radio, all static and broken. I tried to stop it, Joe. Tried to warn them, but it's getting stronger. Turns out Mark had known what he was building all along. The Eagle wasn't just a coaster, it was a door. Those precise calculations, that specific geometry, it punched a hole in something, reality, dimensions, whatever you want to call it. And things started coming through. Dark things that fed on human consciousness, that thrived on that specific kind of awareness you only get when you're suspended between earth and sky, between thrill and terror. Mark's death wasn't an accident. He threw himself into that space on purpose, attempting to close what he'd opened. And he's been there ever since, fighting those things, trying to protect riders by taking the ones they marked for themselves. 17 people in 20 years. Tragic, yeah, but nothing compared to what would have happened if those things had gotten loose in our world. I remember talking to Mark's widow about a year after he died. She mentioned he'd been having nightmares in the weeks before the accident. Said he'd wake up muttering about angles and forces and the thinness at the apex. We all figured it was just stress from the project. Now I wonder if he realized what was happening too late to stop it. There was this one time, about 10 years ago, when we had a power outage right as a train was going through the cobra roll. The backup generators kicked in, but for about 15 seconds, everything was pitch black. When the lights came back on, every single rider on that train was sobbing, not screaming, not laughing like people sometimes do when they're scared on a coaster, just silently crying. They all refused to talk about what they saw. I quit after Jimmy disappeared. Couldn't handle it anymore. The Eagle's still running. You can't just shut down your flagship attraction without reasons that make sense on paper. But sometimes I go back. Early mornings when the fog hangs low over the park. I watch the first test runs of the day, and I swear I can see them all up there. Mark, Jimmy, all 17 riders, standing guard on the highest point of the track. Keeping watch, keeping us safe. The new operators don't know the real story. They don't know why we never sell tickets for the back row on holidays, why there's always a technical issue that requires that row to be empty. Management calls it superstition and lets them do it because it's easier than arguing. I've never been much for religion or supernatural stuff. Before all this, I would have laughed if someone told me a roller coaster could punch a hole in reality. But I know what I've seen. I've been working security at a shopping mall for the past year. Nice and boring, just how I like it. But sometimes I dream about the Eagle. In my dreams, I'm riding in that back row, and as we approach the cobra roll, Mark is sitting next to me. He looks tired but peaceful. He tells me, some doors can't be closed once they're opened, but we can still stand guard. I wake up from those dreams feeling like I abandoned my post, like I should be back there, helping somehow. But what could I do? I'm just an old ride operator who's seen too much, so I just keep my head down, do my job, and hope that whatever Mark and the others are holding back stays where it belongs. If you ever find yourself at Mountain Peak and decide to ride the Screaming Eagle, do me a favor, stay out of the back row. And if you feel something brush past you in the cobra roll, or hear a voice in the wind that sounds like static on a radio, just know that Mark Stevens is still up there, still protecting us all. Some sacrifices don't end with death. Some duties carry on. That's the truth about why I left. Believe it or not doesn't change what happened. But I'll sleep better knowing I've finally told someone.